But yeah, welcome on. I know we haven't had much of a dialogue outside of just interacting in our Discord conversation up to this point. So here's what I look like. Here's what I sound like. But yeah, Hogue like whoa, Cable, or just Hogue. Like a lot of friends just call me by my last name. So Hogue is fine if you're good with that. Um, I've worked in healthcare, specifically mental health care, for about 11 years now. Primary focus on older adults in long-term care. So you can pretty well ask me anything about like long-term care and nursing homes, and I can give you a pretty good shake of the lay of the land. That's kind of my domain of expertise when it comes to talking mental health. Uh, I don't shy away from obviously talking about every domain possible, especially our kind of interdependence and interconnectedness to all things queer culture and um, like today especially every good reason to celebrate that first day of Pride. Kind of happy coincidence that us rescheduling our previous conversation fell on today. And I was excited that Cass spun up a little conversation for us and mentioned like, hey, guess what? I found a place where I feel welcome, and by the way, I'm helping out there. It's the New Mexico Gender Voice Center. I've also kind of made friendly with a colleague there, Kat, and maybe just maybe we can have a conversation on your stream one day. And I was excited to kind of nurture that. I'd love to hear from you a little bit, Kat, if you would like to go first and let us know about you and what you do at the New Mexico Gender Voice Center, and we can kind of take it from there.
Sure, absolutely. Well, my name is Kat Isaacson, and my pronouns are she, hers. And first of all, happy Pride Month to everybody. And I am the founder of New Mexico Gender Voice Center. I am also a licensed speech language pathologist in the states of New Mexico, as well as California, Colorado, and Hawaii.
And Hawaii. Very cool.
Yes, and Hawaii. Yeah.
So with mention of like telehealth earlier, are you doing anything that requires using that license remotely, or do you get to travel there periodically? All of the above.
Yes, my my family actually had a condo for many, many years on Maui and actually just sold it kind of right after the bad fires near
Oh, okay.
Kihei last year, I believe that was. And but now that we've got New Mexico Gender Voice Center kind of more on firm footing and kind of running more smoothly, I am looking, I just actually filed for my business license in Hawaii and also Colorado. California's business license was filed a couple of years ago and things kind of stalled, but we're kind of expanding our telehealth to some of the other states. And Hawaii actually doesn't have any providers that we know of, major providers for gender affirming voice care, voice training, voice transition.
Sure.
So we're looking forward to serving some folks out there, hopefully via telehealth. And I think that's one of the great things about the curriculum that we teach is it's actually very transferable to telehealth. Cassidy is actually one of our, well, or sorry, Cassandra. I have a Cassidy and a Cassandra on my team, and I call them both Cass, and I mix up their names all the time. I
Playing
call Cassidy
association gets
Cassandra.
us. It's fine.
Yeah. I've been in the sun all day too, like gardening, and I'm so sorry. I'm a little out of it right now. But Cassandra is one of our vocal instructors that does telehealth with us during the week for clients, and I think has seen firsthand how the curriculum works in person and how it works for clients via telehealth as well. So she has a great perspective of both sides, same as I do. So,
Thank you for all of that. And Cass, yeah, we're going through some introductions here and a little storytelling. Yeah, whatever you feel safe sharing. So see you with that
Yeah.
flag. See you with that trans flag. Love to see it.
Yeah. Well, my name is Cassandra or Cassie. My pronouns are she, her. I I started transitioning in November of 2022 and just sort of come out online, sort of took it as a test drive, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I knew there were some things and I was starting to put it together as I started to see other like transgender streamers and I'm like, wait, we have like a lot in common. Like, wait a minute. You know what I mean? And like, so I just sort of decided to take it for a test drive, and the more I leaned into it, the more I liked it, and eventually, I ended up at the New Mexico Gender Voice Center because, like, I don't know, my voice was a big, um, hurdle for me. You know what I mean? It's hard to sound, or it's hard to feel feminine when you sound masculine, you know what I mean? So it was a big thing for me. And like Kat was a very helpful instructor, like very like I don't know, she's really great. Like she's just like I don't know, she has a way with people. Like she's very you feel very safe around Kat. You know what I mean? Like um and yeah, I don't know. It was about a few months ago I became a vocal instructor because I think I had mentioned to one of the other clinicians, just like, I don't know, I was going through something and I
Sure.
just I mentioned I needed to find like something to do with my life, you know what I mean? And she was like, "Well, talk to Kat." You know what I mean? And I did, and here we are.
Well, I imagine that took some courage, and
Yeah.
Episode over.
yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah, there's that chapter.
Not so
Sorry.
sorry. Yeah. Yeah, I'm so glad that Cassandra came to me. I've had other students who have graduated or been close to graduating voice services who have become vocal instructors as well, and it's been a really great mix of licensed clinicians who are typically cisgender. As you can imagine, there's not that many gender diverse SLPs to begin with, and even fewer, I think, transgender SLPs. And so to have the mix of some students who have become vocal instructors and the licensed clinicians, it's a really nice blend during session. We have a lot of clients who have really benefited from all of the knowledge that our licensed clinicians bring into the room with the anatomy and physiology and everything they know related to voice. And then the knowledge that the vocal instructors bring in, not only their own experiences in using the curriculum to transition their voice, but also to support on a more personal level.
Hmm.
We know that sometimes for clients, this is their first stop. They want to get their voice before they do anything else related to their transition. Sometimes we're their last stop. Sometimes we're somewhere in the middle. But no matter what, vocal instructors always bring their own perspective related to their transition processes and timelines and everything that they experienced into the room as a great way of empathizing during the session and really supporting clients and where they're at because voice work is not easy. It's frustrating and hard at times. It's also really exciting and really positive. But there are those moments where every single client I've had says, "Am I really going to get there?"
Yeah.
And so having vocal instructors there to say, you will get there because I got there and others got there, you know, is really supportive for people. And I always envisioned New Mexico Gender Voice Center from the very beginning as very much by the community for the community. So I try to always honor that. And I think our vocal instructors who have come and trained their voice with us, transition their voice with us, have their own skill set that they're bringing. Like Cassandra has a lot of other skills that she's bringing on her own. So that's very, very helpful to people and reassuring and supportive. And that it's very useful. And I
Sure.
think holds true to the intent behind New Mexico Gender Voice Center as a
From your
nonprofit.
I guess the origins of like program development and kind of observing it change and client outcomes change and what adjustments you may have needed to make on the way. Have you always been able to see that um, I guess the beneficial outcomes you're speaking to, have you always been able to see that kind of bond between client and provider kind of deepen because it sounds like the way you're describing it, it sounds like there's kind of some peer support woven in there too of that like interpersonal relatability. Not everybody's story is going to be the same, but certainly some shared uh, frustrations or challenges along the way to just kind of nurture and encourage somebody. And we were talking about being curious earlier versus judgmental. Be curious and self-compassionate, and say like everybody is going to be on a different journey. There's no one uh, threshold for when you will overcome and meet your desired goal. Like, I can't say by next week you're going to feel or notice an immediate change, but gradually over time we will get there. Um, was that all present at the beginning, or just months and months into it as you kind of shaped the program?
Um,
Let me ask a really complicated, convoluted question there.
I mean,
I will say the simple answer to that is that New Mexico Gender Voice Center was always registered as a 501c3 nonprofit from the very beginning. It was always envisioned as, belonging to the public. And its purpose was very simple in the beginning, which was just to accept donations to cover the cost of voice sessions for those in New Mexico who don't have insurance and can't afford the cost of private pay sessions. But it did blow up fairly quickly. And so I don't like to say that we've kind of made it up as we go, but
It's okay if you did.
yeah, we,
So the improv 101, it was a lot of yes anding. And
it was like more and more clients coming to us as word of mouth spread really quickly. We had I was all ready to go to accept insurance kind of right around the time we got started. And so providers were also hearing about us from our clients, when they would go in for their other appointments related to their transition. And all of a sudden, I just had more clients than I really was ready to handle because I was primarily a school SLP at the time. I
okay.
was just kind of doing this on the side. Yeah. Um, and then kind of accepted my first vocal instructor who was a newly graduated student and just needed a job at the time, same as Cassandra came to me. This person needed a job, and I said, you have a great feminine voice, you have a great bedside manner with people, why don't you just come work for me and teach the curriculum? So that was and that from there I think we just kind of found our way as we had more SLPs and more people like Cassandra who said they finished the curriculum and they have a great feminine voice and they have a great way with people and they needed a job, or they just wanted to give back to the community. They just wanted to do the same for other people, what was given to them. So yeah, I think we are still kind of finding our way forward. I don't know, Cassandra, if you want to speak to that a little bit too, but
I mean, there was a lot in that question. I will say, like, I think, like, yeah, clients do sort of form, excuse me, clients do sort of form an attachment to, like, their instructors. And I've seen that, like, and it is like, it does make a difference to clients when their instructor is also trans and knows exactly, like, what they're going through and like where they're at and like, you know what I mean? And someone who, like, when they talk about something, they have some kind of concern, someone who can say, yeah, I've been through that too, you know what I mean? Like, that does make a difference. And like, yeah, it does take time to learn how to do everything, you know what I mean? Like, fundamentally, it's not that complicated, but it's remembering to do all of the things and then make it be habit. So that it's like reflexive. You just do it. You don't think about it really. You don't think about like how you, like, I can switch back and forth and I just don't think about it. Um, but yeah, no, it's a very positive experience, you know what I mean, for for, I think, on both sides, really. You know what I mean? Getting to see, both for the clients, who um, get to hear themselves for the first time. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
Who get to find that and unlock that. And also, for the instructors who get to watch them on that journey, who get to watch them grow and evolve, and their entire like demeanor and confidence like change. You know what I mean? Like it's a really beautiful thing.
It is really beautiful. I
Mhm.
mean, poetry by definition, I think.
Yeah.
Um, and everything you described, Kat, I mean, just makes me wonder why this. I mean, I would understand why it's not the most ubiquitous programming, but why I don't see more of that because it's so highly specialized. Um, I mean, we have resources for our LGBTQ community, like in Fort Worth, where I am, but to my knowledge, nothing quite like this. So I don't know how unicorn of a program this really is, and maybe that's one of those things where it's like see the need, meet the need approach. Like you saw this needed to happen, so you just made it, and I mean, that's why it's not as big as like I selfishly would want it to be. But
Yeah, no, there's a lot of great thoughts in that. I mean, we are one of the only clinics that I know of in the States that is solely dedicated to serving the LGBTQIA2 Spirit Plus community. There's other clinics in the States that do provide gender affirming voice training and voice transition, but they also serve other voice clients as well. People I like to just refer to as like professional voice people, doing all kinds of things
or like stroke
with their
recovery or
voice.
whatever.
Yeah, or theater people, singers, people who do professional voiceover. But yes, certainly people coming with voice disorders.
There's my long-term care background, like
And
limiting my perspective.
no, that's okay. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, entertainers need
interestingly,
this too. Yeah.
to speak to what you said about it's very specialized, it is very specialized. I think the other piece is, for the most part, in grad school, clinicians are learning about voice disorders and voice dysfunction. So things like nodules and polyps and laryngitis, other acute and chronic conditions related to the voice. So you're ready to go work in a hospital or outpatient rehab of some sort. Um, to work with healthy vocal folds actually requires a totally different skill set in a way. And I had to do a lot of continuing ed and
Okay.
still do in order to work with this population. But it's also, it's very rewarding because there's not that many instances as a therapist where you're working with people who have typical, um, vocal setups in this case, but or typical anything really, no matter the setting that you're in. So, and I think also, sometimes clinicians don't realize the clients who come to New Mexico Gender Voice Center, and I've heard this from other therapists who work with gender affirming voice care clients as well. These are some of the hardest working clients. They do everything we ask of them. They come with a positive attitude. They practice. They are the best. They really are. And it's very refreshing. It's a very refreshing experience as a clinician to work with clients who are always happy to see you, always ready to go, want to learn more, are asking the right questions, doing their own research. Sometimes they come with more knowledge than me. It's really wonderful. It's fantastic. Oh, um, but I think also lots of us, like I know for myself, I never envisioned myself as a gender affirming voice care clinician. I fell into this. It wasn't something I set out to do. I always envisioned myself as a school SLP, and working with kids. But like you said, Hogue, when I did see the need in the community, here, I mean, it did start small, but as the need became more known, then I was transitioning more into a full-time role with
Yeah.
New
Was
Mexico
it,
Gender.
if you don't mind me being curious about that, was it any just one episode that you experienced where it kind of highlighted that moment of, hey, I could really use my skills in a different way here? Or did you just notice a pattern? Or was it a little bit of both, something else?
I think I was a little hesitant at first because actually voice was not my interest in grad school. I kind of hit the button on voice
Okay.
that semester. I remember even thinking in grad school, like, I'll never do this. I'll never like, use these skills ever. Of course, I always looked forward to seeing my gender affirming voice clients the most during the week. So I was noticing that pattern. I was noticing that my clients were asking for more and more time. We had more and more clients. Part of the hard part is like when you come out of grad school, you are ready to do a variety of things. And this is not one of them because really see, you don't really receive the training to do this type of specialized care. And also, I think very slowly, finally, graduate programs are training clinicians to recognize voice transition as a difference, not a disability or a dysfunction or a disorder. So
Yeah.
making that move away and teaching it as separate from voice disorders. I mean, there's still way too many programs that are just throwing this into the voice disorders semester.
Yeah, getting out of
Um,
that pathologized medical model into something a little more strengths
exactly.
focused and human person centered. It's kind of what we're
Yes.
seeing like in all domains of healthcare. But yeah, it's still one of those things that we wish we could just flip a switch on and make that a little more, widely appreciated versus just gradually. But I hear you.
Yeah, exactly. It really should be its own. There should almost be like a whole semester devoted to just voice difference because there's plenty of clients out there to work with, not just gender diverse clients, but there's plenty of cisgender clients who are working with healthy typical voices as well. And that's certainly like a pathway for clinicians to go. But I think the moment that I kind of made the switch to full time with New Mexico Gender Voice Center was last September. I was doing some virtual speech therapy with a school in California, and there was a parent who was observing the session uninvited and not supposed to be there. And I just really in that moment had it with virtual school setting and overbearing parents. And I just thought, I feel like NMGVC needs me so much. And I'm just staying up all hours. I'm working all hours to make this happen. And we are doing really, really well. I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to be there for my clients. I'm going to be there more for my team. And like right after that, we ended up moving offices to kind of a bigger, nicer office that was closer to other providers and places that our clients were already going for other types of healthcare.
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
and yeah, it just continued to blow up from there. So,
Well, good. You're not done yet.
no, I
I'm trying to
don't
find a way
think
to add some
so.
rocket fuel to accelerate the growth here. Not beyond your capacity. Um,
We're always beyond our capacity.
well, I guess to that end, ways to support you. I've got some links ready to share. I want to consume. Let's see. Got what I want to drop. There we go. Donate. Here, I've got your donate link here from your website. I'm going to drop that in the chat. Is there any one, I guess, element of where somebody could donate that you would deem a higher priority, or they're all equal importance?
There's multiple ways just because we wanted to give people multiple ways. But I think probably the easiest is just to go to the website, nmgvc.org, and there's a donate page on there with options and
I just put that in my
anything is
chat,
really,
and yeah, I
we
see.
really appreciate it.
Yeah, there's the Give Butter, Zeffy, GoFundMe, PayPal, and then an Amazon wish list. So I don't know if that translates into some quick tangibles for
Yes.
the center.
Yeah, we have very low overhead. I mean, mostly what's on our Amazon wish list is the cups, the straws that we use for the curriculum,
Okay.
which I'd love to chat a little bit more about because we teach something really unique that we keep hearing over and over again. People have not seen or
Yeah,
experienced
I'd love to
before.
get into that. I'd love to for everybody here to kind of know about this. Definitely one of the questions that I wanted to ask was could you kind of walk us through what kind of what a more conventional session is for you.
Cassandra, can you start us off?
Sure, I guess. Do you want me to do you want me to give you a session or
Oh, yeah. Do you have a straw and water?
do you have a straw and water? Yeah. It preferably a large straw, like a
I have a
Slurpee
water. I don't have any
straw.
straws actually.
Do you have like one of those, do you have one of those cups, you know what I mean? Like the Stanley cup that have the wide straw,
My
like
cute
this
cup
guy right here.
has no straw. It's
Okay,
just like
that's
that.
fair.
Well, damn it. You know what? Because
We could use
demonstrate.
a Yeah, we could just use the regular, like the regular straw. We could do it. It's not gonna be too bad for just a few minutes. You'll be all right.
If anybody's watching, you can follow along too. This is super gentle and effective. It's based on water resistant therapy, which is very well researched.
I'm gonna share something into the chat.
Okay.
Okay.
These are the Harvard sentences.
Oh my gosh. I love
I
it.
th
She
I
is
think I
such a
was
good
looking at
instructor.
those. If you depending on what you're sharing, I might have while
Okay.
I was nosing around the website and looking at what resources are available. It looked like you had some kind of step-by-step guides already uploaded. And I
It's
was being curious about. So I took a little bit of a sneak peek at that. Cass, did you drop the link or did you want me to?
Oh, I can, yeah, one second. For Harvard sentences? Wait, for what link?
I think it's
Wait,
directly
what?
under resources. So you mentioned it was
Oh,
sentences that you would recite. So I see one for
oh,
like going, hey, like
right. The
navigate
resources.
like
Oh, yeah,
real social interactions of
Sure.
like ordering a coffee.
Yeah. Let's do that. That's a great idea. There you go. There's some Harvard sentences in the chat. I just wanted to confirm what link you wanted. I didn't want to just throw anything up in the
And these are also
Sure.
posted on the nmgbc.org website. I PDF'd all 720 of them, so they're up there if the PDF is easier for people to scroll through. There's also the Harvard sentences in English were translated into Spanish as well by a team of people recently, I think just like a few years ago, I want to say. Um, so the Spanish sentences are also up on the NMGVC website. You can find them under the resources
There we go.
tab.
Chat. I've got the
Mhm.
resources link there if you want to dig into that and explore everything they were just describing.
So the Harvard sentences are 75 lists of 10 sentences each, phonetically balanced sentences. So these are going to be what we use to practice. We're going to start on today, we're going to use one of my favorite lists just because it has a funny sentence in it.
All right.
We're going to use
Cass,
list
real quick,
51.
if you don't mind me interrupting you, are you able to increase your microphone sensitivity a little bit?
Sure, let me turn that up. I have a adjustable gain. Is that better?
That
That's much
is.
better.
Okay, we're just going to leave it there then. I'll keep that in mind. All right. Right. So you have a straw, you have some water. Make sure the cup is not too full. You don't want it to splash everywhere when you go to do this. So maybe about half full. It could be like, a third full. That would be fine. Um, and as long as you have that, or are you gonna do this with us, Hogue? Or
Oh, you're wanting. Okay. I thought
yeah,
this
yeah, yeah,
was the
yeah.
royal
This is
you.
this
This is
is
the hypothetically you. If you're okay, you want me to?
okay. So what we're gonna do is, oh, is that not like a long straw?
Not at all.
Okay, that's not gonna work. So I'll just walk through how like we would do it. So we would start with, let's just start with sentence one on this list. What you would do is place the straw in your mouth about halfway so that it's at the roof of your mouth about 1 millimeter away. You don't want it to jab the roof of your mouth or anything. And you want the straw to sort of also be against your top front teeth, and that's going to allow the airflow to go in the proper direction to redirect it from the back of the throat into the soft palate. And to do this, once we have done that, we're going to read the sentence um, in a very, very high falsetto into the straw, and it's going to sound very funny, but it's going to sound like this. And then sitting up straight, with your diaphragm expanded, chin up and out, and a smile, high and bright. Shake the dust from your shoes, stranger.
Shake the dust from your
That
shoes,
was a
stranger.
beautiful. That was
Yeah,
such a
top
good
marks, top marks
demonstration.
there.
That was really
And
good. Yeah.
generally, we would continue down the list and make sure uh, routinely to check in with the client and ask, how are you doing on vocal fatigue on a scale of 1 to 10? We never let them get past a 5. If they're at a 4 or a 5, we're going to take like 5 minutes of vocal rest so that we're not doing any damage to the laryngeal mechanism and we're not causing any strain or soreness or difficulty with their vocal production in general. And yeah, we work through the system and sessions are generally 30 minutes. And initially, like when you start doing it, the effects are only gonna, once you do the straw and everything, they're only gonna last for like maybe 5, 10 minutes, and your voice is gonna kind of slip because the more you do it, the more you sort of reset the brain and reset the habit. Like your speech patterns and your sound and your voice are really just a series of like habits, right? And when you reprogram those habits, you can change all that. Like this voice is no more stressful or straining than it is to use just an unfiltered voice. And
Sure,
actually,
that partially ties to
sometimes
the
with
scheme as we were talking
clients,
about earlier.
Mhm. Sometimes with clients, I do drop into my unfiltered voice just for the sake of demonstrations. They find it very useful and also in a way comforting. Like, I mean, it's one thing when someone sounds just absolutely perfect and they're telling you everything you need to do. And then all of a sudden, I'm going to drop the bomb on you and say, look, I'm a lot deeper than you are. I
That
mean, it kind
demo
of,
is always amazing. Clients always like their jaw always drops open. They're like, "Oh my gosh!" So it really is possible. Like I think that's the moment where it clicks for clients.
yeah,
Like, okay, I can get
Yeah, you
there.
can
This
get
is
there.
actually
yeah.
possible.
Kat, I
And
gotta
Yeah.
call
all of a
attention
sudden,
to it.
like,
You
you
were
see,
you were just like beaming throughout that presentation, like so, just like pride all over Cass. And I wanted to bring
I
some awareness to
take
that because I don't know if
I
Cass could see you. Just
yeah.
that's
No, I take a lot
confirming
of pride
smile.
and joy in like what I get to do. You know what I mean? I don't It used to be like I'd look at the calendar and be like, "Oh, damn it, I gotta work tomorrow." You know what I mean? And it's like, "Oh wow, I get to work tomorrow." You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's such a different thing. Like I take a lot of like joy in what I do. It's very rewarding. Like, you know what I mean? To help people who um who I mean need it, who want it, who are like in the same position I am and was, you know what I mean? Like
yeah. Having that deep
it's so
importance kind of fueling your motivation. I mean, that
yeah,
that
it's
sounds
so
significant.
good. Yeah.
Thank you
That
for
was a
showing us
really
that.
lovely demonstration.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry I couldn't
Cass
follow
really.
along. I do have a medical out. I had a tooth extracted a few weeks ago. I was highly discouraged from using a straw while I heal up there.
No, that's okay. I think what's great is I don't know if I could share my screen maybe and I can pull up my larynx poster and maybe just show a little bit why this process works. So I'm just
Okay, yeah, you
gonna,
should be able to.
I can
is
drop
that
mine
okay?
down. Mhm.
Okay, let me, sorry, hang on. I'm gonna just open the larynx poster, which I should have already had prepared. Um, so this curriculum is based on water resistant therapy. It's been very well researched by one particular SLP in general. Let me just find where is the poster. We do pair it with some other techniques. Uh-huh. Okay, this is, can everybody see this?
I cannot.
Mhm. I
You
see it.
can.
Yeah,
Huh.
it's in the
Maybe it's in a
Discord.
separate window.
Can you
It's
see my mouse moving around on it, Cass?
I do, yes.
Let's
Okay, you
see.
can.
It's in the Discord call. It's a shared screen from Cat's End.
I see you two. Maybe it's because what I have pinned. Let me see. What
Bloop, blip,
is...
blop.
I'm making you the focus.
Oh no.
Um, there might be another way I can share that. Let's see. I don't know why that's not present to me. It's showing you two, but let me go back into the Discord window and see if
Do
that's...
we
No?
do we have a link to that on the resources?
Yeah, you know what? There actually is. It's on the resources page. It's
Okay,
at the very bottom,
it's the
and
bottom.
there's a
Okay.
video right next to it showing vocal fold phonation, which might be
Okay.
useful to people as
Okay, so
well.
you're wanting
Yeah.
the infographic where it says the larynx?
Yes,
That's the
it's the
Okay.
one.
poster. Yeah. So
Okay.
this is the poster that I use have in the office in all the training rooms. And I'm just going to show, kind of give a quick explanation why this works so well. So in water resistant therapy, it was developed as a vocal relaxation technique for professional voice people. And typically it's used more like, so part of what we couldn't hear too well with Cassandra's demonstration was just all the bubbles. So when you're saying the sentence into the straw, you're going to hear your own auditory feedback, that highlight and bright that you're doing into the straw a lot easier. And you're going to hear and see all of the bubbles that are being produced into the water. So those are good signs. You want to hear and see all of that. And then in the research, what they tell us as to why it works. Oh my gosh, hang on.
I have
Let
the
me
larynx
see.
infographic up, at least on my screen, so I can move that to any other model you're referencing.
I'm gonna draw right now, but I'm just curious if people can. I know Cass can see it, but can everybody else see it too? Or
I can't see, unfortunately, I can't see your screen share, but I was trying to do a workaround there, so I can always move this.
Yeah,
okay,
Hook's got it up on stream.
Yeah, I've got the larynx
okay.
infographic up, and I can move that to anywhere else we need.
I'm gonna do a little makeshift like cup here. Second.
We're on the
And I'm gonna
top center diagram labeled larynx.
Okay, so I'm just making like a little cup with water, and let me just put some, like Cass said, oops. You just want it about halfway full. If you have it more full than that, so the more water, the harder you'll work, right? The more water, the easier it will be, but you'll get more splashback. The less water, the harder you'll work. That's what the
Okay.
research shows. So I always just say halfway full is totally fine. Sorry, I'm having troubles here. Let me just. Okay, so I'm just using these purple squares to kind of make like a pretend cup with water, and then I can kind of show why this works. So what happens?
Where can I see that
I have the.
on the resources page? Or are you doing this on the fly?
Oh, it's
I'm
on
doing
the fly
on
in the
the fly.
Discord thing. Sorry.
I hope
Okay.
everybody can see. Sorry, Hogue, that you're not able to. But basically, what I did is I just did some shapes on here to show
Okay.
like the straw in the mouth on the larynx poster, and then the cup of water underneath the straw. So the straw is in the water, and the top of the straw is halfway back in the mouth, and the bottom half of the straw
Well,
is in the water. So what happens is when you take a breath from the diaphragm, then it travels
it's
up
too
the
many.
lungs and then up the trachea here, which you can see on the larynx poster. They've labeled the trachea for us, which is the windpipe. It's in front of the esophagus there. And then in the trachea there, if you look at those, it looks like lips almost on the side or sitting on top of the trachea. That's your vocal folds. And the vocal folds are what produce sound when you go to speak. So the breath is coming up through the middle of the vocal folds, right in between the vocal folds. And then it's coming along the vocal tract, which most of us just think of as our throat, right? So it's coming up behind the tongue and the back of the mouth. And then, like Cass said, up into the soft palate here, which is the back of the roof of the mouth. And then it's traveling forward. So that's why straw placement is really important, because if you place the straw about halfway back in your mouth, like Cass said, the breath will catch the beginning of the straw right there. And I always tell my clients, how do cis girls make their voice sound pretty? They make it sound pretty by putting their sound and their air into the cheekbone area. The cheekbone area would be roughly where your soft palate is, back of the roof of the mouth. Okay, so the breath is coming into the straw, it's flowing down the straw, and it's creating all those water bubbles that we see in here. It was a little hard to see in here with Cass, but you'll be able, when you do it on your own, you'll be able to see and hear it. Then those water bubbles are creating a pressure that backflows into the straw as air bubbles or air pressure resistance. And those air bubbles or air pressure resistance flows back into the mouth, the soft palate area. So again, another reason why straw placement is important, so that you have it, the air pressure aimed right in the position of the mouth where you're wanting to create your feminine voice from. And the nice thing about that is the air bubbles, they've been able to show with the research, are like little massage fingers inside the vocal tract. And they continue to flow down the throat, the vocal tract, and act like little massage fingers. And then finally, they flow on top of the vocal folds here. And again, they act like little massage fingers. So that's just kind of like a double benefit of using this particular strategy, is that even clients with healthy typical vocal folds are going to feel a really nice benefit. They're going to feel better after doing this, which I think there's just way too many curriculums out there that cause strain, pain, and irritation, especially for clients who are working on feminine voice.
Yeah.
And then the triple benefit is that they're going to, the air bubbles are going to help keep the vocal folds just a little bit more open. So when the vocal folds are at rest, they're open in a V shape like this. And when the vocal folds are phonating or creating sound, they're clapping or slapping together, as a vibrating is the word that we use in the speech field. But I just think of it as like slapping together about 400 times per second. So really, really rapidly. So I always tell my clients, think if you were at a performance and you were clapping your hands 400 times per second. If you're not lubricated with good lotion on, or even have a barrier like gloves on, you're going to get chapped and calloused really, really fast.
Mm.
So same with the vocal folds. So the air bubbles coming down on top of the vocal folds actually force them a little bit more open during phonation. And as you can imagine, the more open they are during phonation, the less they're irritating each other, because they're not coming into contact with each other as frequently. And then my femvoice clients get the added benefit of it releases a little bit breathier sound overall.
Okay.
But like Cass said, the major benefit is that the research has shown there's this carryover effect for up to 10 minutes. And we hear it in the training room as well. So all of those air bubbles are hanging out in the soft palate, they're hanging out in the vocal tract, and it's all this extra air pressure resistance that's just waiting to be used. So when the client goes to produce the sentence out loud, they have all this extra breath that's moving their voice forward, and there's the perception that the voice sounds more feminine. Long explanation for a very simple task. It's actually
No, I'm
much
into
more
it.
simple. Yeah, all the research, it's like a very kind of like intricate explanation, but very simple and easy to execute. Routinely, we have people walking out like, I feel better than I came in. I don't feel any strain, pain, or irritation. And you
Yeah.
shouldn't, right? You shouldn't
And if
have to
anybody
feel
asks if it's
that.
an evidence-based practice, oh yeah.
It is. It definitely is. Now, has it been used to teach, to train gender affirming voice and help clients transition their voice? Not that we know of. Maybe somebody somewhere is using it the way that we do. But all we've done is just tweak basically how they use it for professional voice people,
Mm-hmm.
which typically you're going to hear them using it like, ah, into the straw, right? Because they're trying to open the vocal tract, they're trying to widen the vocal tract for professional voice use. And they're also trying to rehab the vocal tract and the vocal folds, of course, in between all these major performances or, lengthy amounts of time that people are using their voice. So all I did is I just said, I bet if we just use this on a more conversational level, use this at a sentence level, could train voice more effectively and more gently and safely. That's exactly what's happened. our clients. It's been really, really great. So, and it makes it so easy to use in telehealth. It makes it easy for others to teach, people they know in the community and share their skills. And it also makes it really easy to practice safely and effectively. Like I never worry about my clients practicing because they're always going to be using the straw and the water, especially at first. And I know
Yeah.
if anything, they're going to come out feeling better. So yeah, it's really special. It's really a great process. And then we pair it with other things. Let me just stop the share really fast. Um,
Well, thank you for all of that.
they
I
we
guess added bonus to all of it,
Yeah,
you
of
sound like
course.
a really good teacher.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think when people first hear all that anatomy and physiology, it is very overwhelming. You sound like a lot of my clients, Hogue. Actually, they're like, "Yeah, okay, I think I get it." Then they're like walking out, like, "Whoa, what just hit me? I need to think
I
about
took
this. I
A and
need to
P once upon a
marinate on it."
time, but
Oh, good. Okay. Well, and lots of clients are coming. They're coming with these other skills and they're coming with a little bit of understanding, right? But they've never kind of had the vocal tract and vocal folds explained to them in depth this way. So they don't have a great visual in their head of what their setup looks like from the inside out. And they're also coming with these ideas of like, oh, because I went through a testosterone puberty or because I, went through an estrogen puberty, this is not possible for me. And I always say to them, well, then how do professional voice people do it? It obviously, just like Cass said, what I teach to is voice is just a set of learned behaviors using what you already have. And all we're going to do is just train the brain another way to use the sound and the air that you have. And we don't really teach to pitch, although we have our pitchometers in the room and all of that. And we help explain what the average pitch ranges are to clients,
yeah.
for fem and mask voice and gender neutral voice. But we teach to resonance, placement, and control, which really has to do with how do you, just in the normal everyday breath that you take, where do you place that along your vocal tract? Do you push it down for that grit, gravel, and boom in the larynx and the chest? Or do you move it up more to the soft palate in the front of the mouth, the mask of the face, and push it out for that more musical, feminine voice? And then there's gender neutral voice, of course, which is kind of what we found with gender neutral voice is that it's more located in the oropharynx. So you can just think of the oropharynx as kind of back of the mouth, back of the tongue, back of the throat, kind of, right behind the jawline, right?
Yeah.
And we use a tongue depressor method to teach that. That kind of helps isolate the true vocal folds, the false vocal folds, which are around the true vocal folds, the ariepiglottic folds, which are around that. And then also kind of helps clients feel from the inside out that exact spot for gender neutral voice so they can feel it and then they can produce voice from that spot a lot easier. So
I mean, all of this sounds
And
beneficial for anybody. Just not to overthink how we
amazing.
speak, but just to reconsider, if you think about just social psychology and adolescent development and what we were being modeled on how we interact and communicate our needs, make our needs known, we might have been taught by somebody who just speaks with a lot of vocal fry, puts a lot of strain on their voice, and just carrying that. Not to say we've been taught to speak incorrectly our entire lives, but maybe just taking some work out of that.
I just kind of
Absolutely.
want
I
to
mean, oh yeah, go ahead, Cass.
I just want to kind of add to what Kat was saying, and it's one of the things I always tell my clients, right? Because when before I came to the Gender Voice Center, I was kind of trying to work on my voice on my own, just based on things I could find on YouTube. And while there are, like, I don't really want to name any names, but while there are
Sure.
some really prominent channels out there that have really good advice, the explanations maybe aren't the clearest and simplest. And like when I was working on my own, I didn't have any resonance control. And what do you control when you can't control resonance? Pitch. So you end up going really, really high and you sound really, really silly like a cartoon character. And that's really not gender affirming now at all, is it? And so, um, like, um, one second, my brain ran away. Like I had a
That's okay.
thought, but then I had another thought, and the two ran into each other and ricocheted. I got to look for
We get
both of them
multiple
now.
planes in the air at the same time that they'll come back down eventually.
But
Can I
no,
can I piggyback on?
I, I remember now. I remember now. Just real
Yeah,
quick.
go go.
Um, but yeah, once you learn resonance, once you learn what resonance is, what that actually means, and once you learn how to control it, pitch doesn't really matter. Any pitch you come with a proper resonance placement is going to sound feminine. And people have a really hard time. The hardest thing people have trouble conceptualizing really is what is resonance? What does that even mean? What are you
Yes,
talking
I agree with
about?
that. Yeah,
And
I agree
I
with that.
always explain to clients because that's where I fumbled. That's what I couldn't figure out either. And I always explain to clients, you will feel it. Like you have to, like it's there. It's one of those things, like the veins in your eyeballs. You don't see it because your brain filters it out. Like you don't think about it because you use it all the time. But when you're paying attention, you'll feel it as a little ball of vibration sort of in your mouth, right? And when you come like with a more masculine voice, you're going to feel it down here, down in the throat, down in this lower area, down here. And then when you move your resonance forward, I can make my I can make my like lip rings vibrate on my teeth. Like it's wild. I was once drinking out of a can of soda and I projected my resonance into the can and I'm like, hold up.
It's controlling those vibrations. Yeah.
Cass is exactly right. And I do think, uh, resonance is one of those intangible qualities of voice. And the simplest way I explain it to people is it's how your breath is moving your own sound wave forward, or lower, or, lower or higher, basically, depending on what type of voice perception you'd like for people to hear. But there's other aspects too, like in feminine voice, lots of times what we teach the clients to do is to use that super highlight bright falsetto. I mean, first of all, we love for clients to understand their own max range. Lots of times they have never even, a feminine voice client has never even heard their own falsetto. So that's a major milestone. And then we teach them that it's easier to scale down than it is to scale up for feminine voice. So if you can overshoot into your nasal passages for that nasally falsetto, you're just right above the soft palate there. And then we kind of, we teach some circular breathing and some other concepts to teach clients how to just not lower, but relax back into the soft palate, which is, that cheekbone area. From there, we teach smiling position, as Cass said, for that highlight and bright, which plays into feminine stereotypes that are out there. But for a lot of our clients, they need to be safe. So they need to be passing in certain situations. And that stereotypical highlight and bright femme voice, is something that clients can always use, and use for passing in terms of voice for safety. But I teach clients the way you get that is by lifting the tongue to the roof of the mouth. So smiling position for any of us lifts our tongue to the roof of the mouth. And as your breath carries the sound wave forward, it's trying to squeeze through the top of the tongue and underneath the roof of the mouth. So what it is it's sound distortion, almost like a whistle. But if you want smoky femme voice, move your tongue tip down behind your lower front teeth and start from that position instead. So if I just lower my tongue a little bit and keep it a little bit lower, now I have a little bit more professional sounding feminine voice, even though I still have all my unique stress, rhythm, and cadence patterns. I was raised in California and I have a little bit more vocal fry and valley girl kind of, sound to me. But you still know it's my voice. It's just a little bit more serious sounding voice. So, I've run into clients in my continuing ed all over the world who will complain, oh, when I got my feminine voice or my masculine voice or even my gender neutral voice, I lost this accent, I lost this dialect. I talk like this and this voice and this and my other voice, and it's like that should not be happening. That is not right. So that is another great thing about the water resistant therapy is it's going to preserve all of dialects, accents, stress, rhythm, and cadence patterns that are all unique to that person.
Yeah, some of
And
what
it's
you just
funny.
described there almost sounded like some social masking situations where we just kind of, we're going to mirror a lot of what we see anyway, and it undoes a lot of who we are when we're connected to ourselves.
Yeah, that's a
And
really good point too.
it's funny you mention that because when I talk to my girlfriend over Discord, a lot of times I do like voices and joke around because I do that.
Yeah,
And the other day it was a few days ago, last week, something like that. I just kind of dropped into like my unfiltered mask voice for the fun of it, and I realized that I was using a mask voice with all of the feminine feet like speech patterns, and I was like, hold up.
Yeah.
And like it really speaks to how voice is such a really 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 important part of like a transition process, right? Because the more feminine you sound, the more feminine you feel. And the more feminine you feel, the more feminine you act. And the more feminine you act, the more feminine you feel. And then the more feminine you sound. And then
yeah,
it's just this whole self-reinforcing cycle, and it's a big thing. Like it does a lot for
Mental
um,
health does a lot for
alleviating
confidence and mental health. Yeah.
alleviating the gender dysphoria and just feeling better about being who you are and who
right.
you're
That's the,
supposed
I
to
We
think that's
be.
the biggest takeaway.
Like who you
Is yeah,
want, you know?
We have, and same for mask voices too. So we have kind of around the mental health issue, our feminine voice clients are coming in like, I love my fem voice. And lots of times, even just like at the second session, like they've heard their falsetto in the first session, they've heard a lighter, brighter sound. And they can already hear kind of the audio at the end of the tunnel, as I like to say. They kind of hear where they're headed in terms of their natural feminine voice. And they come the second session, hair done, makeup done, dress on. Like they're like, okay, I just heard who I am as a woman, and I feel more confident to present that way and express myself that way as well externally, right? And so that's always great to see. But then there's those issues of like losing power and privilege, when you start using your feminine voice, and it's like strangely affirming because it's like you're starting to get gendered correctly out in the real world, but then people are also treating you differently because you have this feminine voice that's really passing, right? And then we're having the opposite for our mask voice clients where they come in and they're like, wow, I have all this new power and privilege. And
yeah,
people, are really responding to me differently than I've ever been responded to. So, it's in terms of the work that we do, there is that counseling piece as well. Which, I would just say we don't, in the speech path world, we don't get a lot of that in grad school. We are not prepared to support the needs around counseling and mental health for any of our clients, not just our gender affirming voice clients, but and something we kind of have to learn as we go. And I would just say the clients are so awesome in being supportive of that way. Like I think a lot of times the clients know we're learning too. Not necessarily our vocal instructors or clinicians who come from the community, but us cisgender people. And my son is trans, so I came maybe with a little bit more knowledge than the average cis person, but
okay,
still the clients have taught me so much. Yeah.
And that
So
segues into something, and this is unplanned, but can I ask something of you, Kat?
I
Because
don't know. What is
I
that?
feel that trans representation in itself is has a lot left to be desired. But when it comes to like trans mask representation in particular, it's even worse. And I have a very special friend, someone who has been there for me and done a lot for me. And I've always been curious too. And I was wondering, perhaps, I did a little demonstration. I was wondering perhaps if you could walk us through the trans mask side of that.
Oh my gosh. Oh wow. I have not done it in a while. So we have another SLP on the team who is cis masculine who handles all the mask voice clients. I kind of wish I'd asked him to come today, but
Sorry,
I
I
can
didn't really
no,
think about this until now.
it's okay. And my audio is not great, but and suffice it to say that if you just blow into the straw with an open valve, like ah into the straw, It makes it really, really easy. The water makes it very easy to play around, even more so than just open straw phonation without the water, which is also a strategy and technique that we use. And you can lower, and lift your voice easily into the straw and water. And that is the very beginning of how we teach our mask voice clients to lower their voice. And there's also kind of this running joke in the clinic that mask voice is the easy voice, the lazy voice. And we certainly find that it's the easier, I don't know about lazier, but it's certainly the easier one to teach. And it's more subtle and covert to use in the real world. So we teach chin tucking. We teach the clients to kind of pull in and down their chin. Which if you watch mask voices out in the world, regardless of gender identity, you'll see that there's all these learned behaviors around masculine voice, the same as there are around feminine voice. And the chin
Mm-hmm.
tucking and chin lowering is one of them.
Those bravado
Um,
characteristics. Say it with your whole chest, kind of thing.
Yes, exactly. And then that closed lip, closed teeth for that closed resonant sound, which helps push the air back down into the larynx. So it carries the sound wave down into the larynx for grit and gravel and into the chest for boom. Very much just the opposite of what we teach for feminine voice, which is just moving the air to carry the sound more forward. So moving the air more up to carry the sound more forward to the mask of the face to sound higher, lighter, brighter. So that could lead me into a whole conversation about vocal folds and source of the sound and fundamental frequency and how it doesn't really matter what you're working with in terms of if you went through a testosterone or estrogen puberty, but that's probably better for a whole
It
nother
sounds like seeds planted
episode.
for a future podcast featuring Cass and
Maybe,
Kat.
yeah.
Maybe yeah, the New Mexico Gender Clinic podcast.
But let me suffice it to say that I just want to say this as a parent. People always ask me when they find out that my son is trans mask, they always ask me, "Oh, did you teach him how to do mask voice? Or have you been teaching him how to do mask voice?" And my answer is always no, but you wouldn't believe how masculine his voice was even before he went on testosterone because he came out at 3 years old and he has been socialized and perceived as a cis boy. And as a mother, I have watched him learn all these behaviors around his masculine voice and the way he just drops into the grit, gravel, and boom without the T is really interesting to me. And so it's like I tell my clients when they come in, I say, this is why feminine voice is the harder voice. It is more work. It's just more effortful, and it's more effortful and requires a lot more push. But this is why voice transition is not quick and easy for the most part, because you've spent years and years and years and years having your voice socialized another way. And so it's not that we're going to replace what the brain knows about voice, but we have to lay down another neural pathway around this, right? And it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be time consuming. It's going to be repetitive. It's going to be practice. It's going to be hard work. It's going to be learning. It's going to be all these things that people just kind of take for granted that kids learn by just listening and watching and doing, just imitation basically. So, and what we're taught in terms of the gender binary, and what we're taught is expected,
Mm-hmm.
based on how we've been socialized, yeah, and what we've been told about our gender identity and expression growing up. Um, and I always
A
tell
lot of
clients, we're
it's
not going to
role
undo that.
playing.
Yes, yes,
For better or worse. But yeah, we were talking about that before we brought you on. I was talking briefly about Jean Piaget and like adolescent psychology and schemas and how we develop our worldviews and cultural attitudes, and sometimes how we're taught to like
yes.
be socially reciprocal isn't necessarily reflective of who we are. It's just what was shown to us in that kind of exchange. That in some cases results in people like being forced to like shrink down or minimize or not self-advocate just to stay in that prescribed kind of rigid lane, whatever that may be, and or sometimes it's self-protective.
A lot of
Yeah,
times, what we're able to unlearn is every bit as important as what we're able to learn.
I agree. And Kyle, my son and I went to the uh, summer event that the Gender Spectrum organization does out near Berkeley a few years ago. And I remember the head of the organization, Lisa, addressing all the parents and saying that they go around to all these major corporations and these major CEOs and teach about gender identity and diversity and inclusion and all these topics. And they always start their presentation with, "What's your gender story?" And they said, all these cis people looking at me, what do you mean? What is my gender story? And they said that they tell every single person that they present to, you have a gender story. Everybody has a gender story because somewhere along the way, you were told that something you're interested in or something you like or some way that you dress or express yourself or whatever it is not okay because that's not for boys or that's
Hmm.
not for girls. And they just gave the
All because of
example
someone
of
else
there was
putting
some,
themselves into that person's experience, protecting their own
yeah,
ego and just corrupting that person's lived experience and creating a sense of shame. It's vile.
yeah,
But yeah,
shame. Yes, yes.
it's so much of
That's
what
a
we
major.
learn we have to unlearn because of shame-based components about so much of our identities. I was talking about that earlier too, and just puritanical culture shaping shame and guilt around just natural sexuality is like a passion topic of mine, just because of what's corrupted at a very young age about someone who was just not taught to be secure with their own body and securely relating to themselves because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's where, the confidence piece comes in too. We get clients that are raring to go. I mean, Cass has seen this as well. We get a variety of clients. We get clients who are like, they're ready, right? They want their voice yesterday. Then we get clients who they're more shy and there is all this kind of shame or embarrassment or self-consciousness around maybe transition in general or just the voice piece or maybe a combination. And I think that is where the positivity and the cheerleading always comes in. And I mean, Cass sees it all the time too. It's like we have clients who are like, "Wow, y'all are so positive. I've never had somebody in my life who said that I can just do it. I can just go for it. Just try it.
Yeah,
Anything's okay." You know, and so accepting and like, it doesn't matter how it first comes out. It's gonna come out funky at first. We're gonna be here for you. We're gonna support you. We're gonna walk you through it. We're gonna be right here. You're doing great, and it keeps people coming back. And we've had people
yeah,
say to us, this is the happy spot in my week. Like this is the 30 minutes of positivity in my week that I look forward to is this
that's really
voice.
special.
And that's one of the biggest hurdles for clients is confidence. And like I do see that all the time. And like it's even something that I have to remind myself of a lot. Like I just remind myself like I did not start this transition because I give a damn about what other people think.
Yeah. But you're showing up for yourself, and what Kat's
Yeah.
describing, that type of that social climate where you've got that kind of acceptance and affirmation, beyond acceptance, beyond tolerance, keyword
Hmm.
affirmation, like where you have that, you deserve that anywhere you go, not just
Hmm.
in a clinical setting. So I mean that's the work the rest of us have to do is nurture that compassion in the rest of society.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I think it has been eye-opening, um, you know, and I feel filled with compassion for how many people we serve that are filled with anxiety, filled with depression, really are not confident to express themselves how they want to. And I feel like I'm someone who's probably over brimming with confidence and positivity, and like I it makes me happy to know that I could put that into New Mexico Gender Voice Center and give somebody the confidence that week to go shop for their first dress or to put on their first pair of earrings or to go try their feminine voice out in the real world on a spam call or at the grocery store or whatever. I feel like that is when Cass said that this job is so great. I hear that consistently from the team. Like, this is the best job they've ever had. And it's because we get to take all of our confidence and positivity and put it into other people. And you
Yeah.
see how far it goes. You see that it changes people.
Before we wrap up, as we're getting past time here on my end, I watched, I guess the most recent kind of promotional video. I don't know if it's meant to be promotional, but it's a video of you and Cass talking about a little bit. This connects. This is relevant. This connects to what you were just mentioning about having a space where you can act in accordance with yourself and yeah, practice, but having that real deal Holyfield social space to dig into that. And you mentioned, broadcasting on Twitch, which if anybody here was prior to this conversation, please be aware that Cast Androgynous there in chat, follow them. Um, Super fun Twitch streamer there, a good follow. But that is one of the spaces that in your conversation in that video I watched, where you mentioned like, yeah, that's an excellent space, conducive to working, practicing those vocal exercises and you've got opportunities within that to press pause and take breaks or mute your microphone if you need to and whatever else. Uh, or there a cat you just mentioned, like for your child, practicing on a phone call or um, ordering anything, at places where you order things.
Well, the great thing about kids being, I see so many more families embracing who their children are, supporting their children's identity, gender identity, and expression and presentation. So when the kids go to school or when the kids are other places, they get the chance to use their voice and blend into society while they do it, right? So they're like getting all that socialization, like picking up the vocal aspects that they think match them the best, and they have the openness to use it. With our adults, it's more difficult because lots of times they're coming from families where they didn't have that openness, they didn't have that support. And so when you have to you know when you're not able to practice openly for so long, you might not even have had a chance to listen to voices. Lots of times our clients are coming, they're like, I've never thought about what kind of woman I am. I don't even really know like what feminine voices I think sound good. But like Cass said, I and Cass tells clients this too. I always say, as soon as you feel like you can try your feminine voice on the phone or at the grocery store, the gas station, like whatever it is, with a family member, whatever, do it because there's nothing like that real world training for the brain. The brain picks up on that so much faster and easier and just goes so much further with it than anything we do in the training room, right?
Yeah.
Another
And
thing
it's
I
hard.
tell Another thing, I don't mean to interrupt. I just want to real
No, no,
quickly add like another thing I tell clients, especially the ones who have confidence issues, because voice is such a big deal, and a lot of clients struggle with using their voice in public because everybody goes through this, right? We just don't want to sound goofy, right? Like, I mean,
that's
it's a
exactly it.
natural thing. And
And it is going to
everybody
come out
One more note
sounding
of
a little
shame of
funky at
like, yeah,
first.
and
who am
like
I?
It is.
everybody hates the sound of their own voice anyway. Like I
Yeah,
can't
us too.
stand hearing me on a clip.
Oh
It's
God,
just
I
agony.
don't.
But like but like I tell clients like if you're not comfortable using your voice in public, then get on YouTube and watch
Yeah.
some videos that you like by cisgendered females, female content creators that you enjoy watching, and analyze their vocal patterns. Try taking a phrase that they say and try practicing it, repeating it, try to imitate it. And don't be afraid to just rewind it and do that a few times. Try different content creators, different vocal patterns, different speech habits. See what you like, see what sounds good. You know what I mean?
That's a great
Like,
recommendation. I mean, that's taking the reins
no,
of something that we were not able to do as we're neurologically
everybody,
developing as children. That language acquisition phase.
Exactly.
yeah,
We're given models for how to develop our speech patterns and delivery and breath and everything
That's
else.
right.
We're given those. We're not able to choose those. like so
Yeah.
many
And
other things. But in
everybody,
this case, yeah, you're
like,
giving yourself that autonomy.
yeah. And like
Mhm.
everybody, like whether we admit it or not, everybody like practices things in the mirror or something. You
Oh,
know
I
what I
talk to
mean?
myself
We're
all the
all
time. I
built
encourage
with
it.
this
I encourage
skill
everybody, like,
set
you feel weird about
anyway.
talking to yourself alone?
So just
Don't.
use it.
Yeah, it's not weird. I'm telling you, it's not weird. I'm the authority on what's weird. It's not weird.
Yeah, no, and Hogue speaking to something that, as speech paths we know, but I think, the average person doesn't think a lot about, which is how do we acquire speech and language? We are acquiring voice in very similar ways of imitation. I think it's just much more it's less obvious, I think, that we're acquiring voice at the same time and when we're children as we're acquiring speech and language as well, and social communication and all these skills. When people actually start thinking about it, it's like, yeah, actually, my voice is this way, or my stress rhythm and cadence patterns are this way because I grew up around whomever, and they speak this way. So I've had clients speak to, yeah, I grew up around all women and I was socialized as a boy. And I always noticed that my mask voice sat a little higher or sounded a little lighter. And I always wondered why. And now I get why. It's that auditory feedback, right?
Yeah.
So, mhm, yeah. So, a really great observations, and it helps clients. It may seem like simple stuff, but it's stuff that most of us don't stop to think about. But you'd be surprised how far it goes for somebody in the training room, like just kind of dissecting and breaking down. Wow, how did I get to this point with the voice that I'm using? It's probably going to be similar methods and ways that I get to the voice that I'm seeking. So,
Yeah.
yeah, really great example, Cass, with the YouTube and just thinking about, and then, listening to the voices that you like, thinking about, um, who am I, with my feminine voice? What do I like for myself? How do I want to sound like? And then, once we get voice down, we work on laughing, coughing, sneezing. There's all these things that people need to be able to do, right?
Yeah.
Again, you just pick up when you're a kid, you pick it up very subtly and very covertly just by
Yeah,
listening
almost just
and
like
doing.
implicitly, like we're not given like consent-based conversations of like, okay, if I show you this, like here's how you just interact with society in general. It's just kind of like we arrive on
Right.
sort of like a social psychological cruise control, and then later in life we get to our like maybe mid 30s and we can get to a point of like, oh, I'm hearing things about like mindfulness practices and like better assessing the world around me and examining my core values and my identity, and not
What do
taking a
you
deep dive
mean?
into like clinical buzzwords, but getting that point of like self reflection of how do I know what I know? Who am I
Uh,
in
what do
this
you mean
great
it's not healthy to drink
existential
monsters and punch
minefield that we're
drunk?
navigating? How can I be more comfortable and bring myself some existential satisfaction before the lights go out? And things like that are really important to create space for that kind of critical examination. And I mean, you're just doing amazing work to hold space for all of that and more. And someone doesn't have to get necessarily too, metacognitive with it to appreciate it. It's just however they identify with what they want to see when they show up for themselves. When the phrase I like is arrive to meet themselves where
Yes.
they are. Kat, I asked Chat earlier if they had any questions, and somebody in the community was asking, and somebody I know here that's a friend who that has partners, and they're wanting to know for just for their own use. Do you have any tips for partners and how they can help?
Yes, actually. So I always think it's great if the partner is willing to go to at least one voice training session. I've had many partners join voice training sessions. I always give them a straw and water and teach them all the things, and they do it along with. We've had parents come. I recently got to hear a mother and my client who is trans femme, and we got to compare their feminine voices, and that was amazing for everybody involved. They
Okay.
were able to hear the familial connection in the voices, right? So you could definitely tell they were mother and daughter for sure, and that was like very reaffirming. reassuring and
You hear those
affirming to
like
the
similar
client.
affectations
But
come through, and
well, yeah, because we have especially, I mostly work with femme voice clients, and so a lot of my answers are just skewed that way. But for my femme voice clients, I hear a lot from them. Like, I always thought I would sound like my sister or my mom or my aunt, like somebody in my, a woman in my family, a femme voice in my family. And typically, we find that to be true. And it's a very reassuring and affirming thing because I think in terms of people feeling like I want my femme voice to sound natural and like me, that would be part of it. Like that would be an extension of their natural femme voice is also sounding like the other women in their family. So,
okay,
but for partners at home, practice with your partner, and I always say how you can do that is just do your regular conversation. So just have your regular, how was your day, what did you do, blah blah blah, whatever. And every time you go to give your response, first say it into the straw and water, then say it out loud to your partner. And the best is if you make your partner do the same thing so that you're on even playing ground, right? And especially so they're not like waiting for your response. And then every time they respond to you or ask you a question, they have to say theirs into the straw and water. I mean, you'd be surprised, even for somebody who's not transitioning their voice, they feel better after doing the straw and water. They're like, I think I'm going to keep doing this because it just feels so good. It's like massage therapy for the vocal folds and the
yeah.
vocal tract, right? But yeah,
I
and
wish I
that's a
did have a
really easy
straw
way. And you
earlier.
only have to do
This
you
is
only have to do that for, yeah, actually for content streamers, it's a really great way to rehab
Yeah, I'm starting to
and
think of when
restore
I take
after all that.
like a lot of streamers, it's pretty common for them to have like a channel point redemption for their chat, and somebody will show up and say, "Hey, it's time for you to take a drink of water, there, streamer. You're sounding a little raspy."
Yes,
Or it's just, someone wants to show up
yes,
and that's their way of saying hi, and they'll just do a little hydrate redemption. But everybody's reminded to stay hydrated because it's one of those things like physiologically, the moment you know you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated. So I feel like
yes,
mitigating that.
exactly. And same, I didn't touch too much on it, but the vocal folds and the vocal tract need to stay lubricated. That's why saliva production is so important and hydration is so important because again, like hands getting chapped or calloused if they're not right. But and then also the other thing I just want to, first of all, you don't need to practice with your partner very long, like 3 to 5 minutes a night, right? Is great. And then also let your partner give honest feedback. It's going to be hard at first because they're going to say things like, sounded a little low there, or, oh, a little husky today, or what. I mean, I've heard all kinds of things that partners have said, but they're really not there. It's supportive. You've got to allow yourself to receive that because it really does train the brain. I mean, the brain really
Yeah.
does file that away. Same as like if I was out and somebody was like, "Oh wow, that sneeze was like good job in your man voice" or whatever. I mean, I had plenty of people like tell me that I sound deep and all this stuff, and I file that away. I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm not going to do it that way again. I'm not going to sneeze that way again," right? Like, and whatever the conversation is around feeling self-conscious, just leaving that aside. What's great about it is that you won't go that direction again. You'll try something else, and it'll probably be just a little bit more accurate and how you want it, right?
Yeah.
So you just keep building like that. Yeah.
What
So
is the, would you mind repeating what's the, because someone just asked and I'm having a little bit of a brain fart. What is the specific name of that exercise with the straw? Like if someone wanted to look that up and find kind of a model on YouTube or anywhere else.
yeah, it's water resistant therapy. It is typically more like vocalizations into the straw. Again, we use it just a little bit different way. But the SLP who's done a lot of research on it is Dr. Marcus, I forget exactly, Guzman. Um, I don't know where he's out of now. He used to be out of University of Kansas, I believe, and then he was in South America for a while and at a university down there. I want to say in Columbia, maybe, but and he's done quite a bit of. There's a ton of great diagrams. You can also, where I first learned about it was on Nats Chat, which is the National American Teachers of Singing Association, I believe it is, and they have a free
Okay.
YouTube, and you can go on their YouTube, just type in Nats Chat YouTube, and then in their YouTube search for water bubbles, I think it is. It's like water bubbles, water resistant therapy. But yeah, he nicknamed it water bubbles. And there's an hour-long free presentation, which is where I first got my initial information. And he's got great diagrams, great pictures about the aerodynamics and acoustics of everything. And they used all this fancy scientific equipment to prove what was happening from the inside out. It's a really cool presentation.
Okay. I found one,
So
the mindfulness of singing. Does that sound familiar? or just like breath
Um,
management strategies? I guess everything from their channel sounds pretty relevant to what you're describing there.
everything. That's a lot of where my continuing ed comes from. But this in particular, look
Okay.
for doc. Let me. I'll find it. Actually, let me
I'm
look
gonna
for it
drop
right
their
now
link
before I get off.
in my chat here too.
So that's actually
It's
really fun to hear you say some of that earlier, Kat, because on the 11th, I'm actually planning on bringing one of my partners along with, and that's going to be a fun time watching him do
oh, that's so
the little
great. Oh,
That's
here.
pretty
exercises.
sweet.
It's going to be so cute.
Oh my gosh, here it is. I just found it. Hang on one second. How do I drop this? Where
You
can
can
I
put it in
drop
our
this?
group
What
chat,
am I
and then
doing?
I can copy and paste it over. Or if you're in the
Okay,
stream, you just
perfect.
put it in the chat.
Oh shoot, I hid the chat earlier. Wait, where is it now? Hang on. Pop out.
Bottom right, there's the full screen button thing.
Oh, okay, thank you. Oh
Uh-huh.
my gosh. No, that didn't do it. Where is it? Oh my gosh.
Oh, Rascal's
Inbox
hiding from you.
focus. It is. It truly. Let me just send it to you, Hogue, directly because it just
Okay.
I can open up that. And then here, Cass, I'll send it to you too,
Boom.
just so you.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
Okay,
Water bubbles for the
Okay,
voice.
cool. All right.
nice.
Now I can't find oh wait,
Little
there's the
bubbles, no
video.
troubles.
It's really interesting information. I felt like what's great about him is I've watched a few of his presentations now, and he always breaks it down. And I don't mean this like condescending at all, but just because I always need it broken down and talk to like I'm a kindergartner, he breaks it down very, very easy to understand. I don't feel like he addresses the presents his information like it's a class full of graduate students who already have some baseline knowledge. I feel like he breaks it down in a way that anybody could understand. And I've posted this particular YouTube video on the NMGBC Facebook page before to kind of show people where this curriculum has come from and why it's so effective. Because I do think it's like it takes an hour to fully explain. I think he does a great job, but it really does take him the full hour to explain all of the different elements and why it works and how it works. And it's hard to give people a short answer, right?
Yeah.
And it's in training, it's something I go over multiple, it's a multiple training session explanations. Like every time somebody comes to their session, I'm adding a little bit more to the answer and bringing them along with me. So in a conversation like this, it's hard to kind of,
I
um,
think, yeah, I mean, everything you described, I mean, it's one of those things that it doesn't really benefit from like diluting or attenuating. Like, you kind of do want to get all the granular detail. Um, but selfishly, I'm one of those who just appreciates the nitty gritty anyway. But like you're saying,
yeah,
like, you can't, you don't know, no one, like, even on their best day, has the cognitive faculties to take it all at the same time. Just like,
yes, that too.
yeah. But the teacher
Yeah,
or
yeah. I
student in that
mean,
case, you know?
I think, and Cass has seen it like the first few sessions for sure. Clients are usually leaving the session like, oh my gosh, like what just hit me? I don't know what's going on. This is so much information. And people need time to marinate on it and think about it. And that is useful too. We know it's good to let people go away, think about what they've just learned, come back with their questions and observations, and then add a little bit more. So
Okay.
also keeps them coming back because, in the beginning, I had, people that were like, I'm too scared to come back. This feels so overwhelming because people are thinking about their voice transition in terms of this huge overarching goal. And it's like, don't think of it that way. Just think of it
That
today,
existential
right?
pang I was
Because
mentioning earlier. Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly.
And like every session with every client, I always make a point of asking like certain questions every session. Like, did you have any opportunity to this week to like practice or use your voice in public? You know what I mean? And I always find that answer interesting because it does generally start out with oh, I didn't really get time to practice, or oh, I didn't really practice as much as I like, and it'll gradually evolve into, oh
Uh,
yeah, I practiced some this week with some. I
Yeah.
was hanging out with some friends, and like I always ask, like, do you have any questions, comments, or concerns at this point? Because like exactly, they're gonna come back with questions, and they may not be thinking about that and just the anxiety of, oh, I have this thing I got to do online. And like,
Yes.
so I just like to address those and make sure that they have the information that you know what I mean, that those concerns are met and addressed. And
Yeah, it sounds really validating.
I always ask, how do you feel about your voice, like about the sound you just made? Because at the end of the day, like, and I think it's something Kat's mentioned to me before, like, because she has all the credentials, she has all the knowledge and training, and it's like we can we can push someone to the absolute pinnacle of perfection if we so chose to, but that's not what it's about. It's about, what do you want to sound like?
Totally. 100%. And we see that change over the course. Like I have had some voice clients come in like, no, 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 I never want to use my mask voice again. And then they get out there and, they're losing some power and privilege, or they just realize for themselves, like, actually, just being able to achieve my feminine voice is making me like my mask voice a little bit more, and I'm a little bit more comfortable with it. And then suddenly it's like, maybe I want both. Maybe I want to be able to do both. And maybe I want to add gender neutral voice in there a little bit,
Yeah,
we see this like world open up for them because voice is so intimate and so personal. And when you're coming in and you're like, I just need to not be this, that's totally different than feeling open to possibilities and being anything that you want to be. And voice is like, you could do anything with your voice that you want to. I mean, we've made singers out of people. We've helped people with their karaoke singing, professional singing, just singing in the car, singing in the shower in their feminine
I
range,
sing
masculine
now.
range. Yes,
awesome.
exactly. Whatever you want to do. You realize it's possible. You're like, wow, if I could use the water in the straw to do this, which is totally opposite than what I've been doing, obviously I can do something else with it. It just makes sense, right? So, and it's not this thing that, people are thinking is like unchangeable and you're stuck with it or whatever. You have everything that you need. Does not matter what puberty you've been through, you have everything that you need for the most part. We're all kind of set up the same in the vocal tract, in the vocal folds, in the laryngeal mechanism and everything. So just learned behaviors is just teaching your brain to teach the motor process, to teach them the memory, the muscle memory. So
Yeah,
all those three connected. So yep.
learning
Great
behaviors and
conversation.
unlearning behaviors.
Yeah, unlearning. We do have clients. It's funny. I've had some femme voice clients come back to me and say, "Gosh, Kat, actually, if I wanted to use my mask voice, I think I would have to come back, and you'd have to teach me how to use my mask voice because I don't even remember how to use it. I'm so lifted and light all the time. I don't even know if I could get down and deep and gravelly again, if I wanted to. And there's no real safety issue around that. It's just more about the muscle memory at that point. It's like they're using
Hmm.
their feminine voice to such an extent every day that it's such an automated process that they probably just would need to come and have somebody kind of coach them through lowering again if they wanted to do that, right? So but again, everything is, and that's great. Like if somebody's headed in that direction and they're like, yeah, and I don't miss it at all. Like I use my femme voice all the time and I don't miss my mask voice at all. And it doesn't bother me. And I love my life and everything's going great. That great, good. If that was your original goal or that was the goal you made for yourself somewhere along the way, that's also really cool. We're always open to whatever clients figure out for themselves along the way, I think is fantastic.
And
So.
that's kind of a thing that happens to me a lot too, especially now because I am such in the habit of doing it all the time. And like even before I came here, I was doing my horrible, like not good femme voice like all the
And
time.
raspy and
Yeah,
nasally. Yeah.
raspy and so bad. Yeah, it was rough and like
Well,
it's
you're still
so
learning.
much smoother than it was now. But um like now, even when I try to like do demonstrations for clients, sometimes I struggle to remember how to drop back down into that sound. And like it's something that happens with me because like I don't know, like I've kind of always wanted to be like a voice actor, right? Like I do a lot of voices, I make a lot of weird sounds, and like some of them like I can do with a femme voice, and some of them like are just mask. So like I have to drop back down to do that voice, and then like I don't know, it's weird like trying to like when you're already modulating your voice and then you're modulating on top of modulation.
It's work.
Yes, I've had femvoice clients who are new parents, new mommies, and the baby comes along and we work on character voices in narration, for baby stories, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so much harder to do a mask voice in my feminine voice than I thought it was going to be. That it's totally possible. And I love that Cass brought that up. It's just another example of you can do anything that you want to do with your voice. It just takes practice and just understanding safe, effective ways to do it. So I really encourage people to explore out there, but explore with somebody, explore with support.
Yeah.
Because it is very easy to bring on strain, pain, and irritation. It is
Mhm.
really easy to go down the wrong road and ruin your voice.
Mhm.
So get professional support.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Cass, I mean, what you're describing there sounds like one more kind of psychologically positive, it means for accessing that self and that connectedness to an interest like voice acting. Because you read
And
for a
it's
character that you know, admire the traits of, and giving that voice to them, and then hearing
and some
what you
of
want out
it
of that.
ties in a little more directly than intended too. Like before I started coming to the Gender Voice Center, one trans femme streamer in particular had always said, and they're their own force of nature. Uh,
All
they
right. Some
taught
people are.
they
Yeah.
taught themselves femme voice,
Yeah, some
and
people can just
like
do it.
some people can do that. It's not for everyone.
Right.
Most people can't.
Right.
So
Right. I
yeah.
agree.
Well, yeah, I heard
But
there's like a lot of risk involved with just
her advice
yeah.
was like, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm
You're
sorry.
fine. You're fine.
Her advice was uwu voice. And it was something that like I like to do too. And I found that it's really interesting because and it's not something we teach and it's not something you can expect like everyone to do, but for me
Hmm.
personally, it does like really work. Because when you do the oral voice, you hyper-accentuate your cheek muscles and the lips get kind of close together and it pushes the tongue up and it really, really forces and constricts the airflow and it gets all the air into the soft palate and it even constricts down here a little bit. And then when you go back into your femme voice, it's so smooth and butter. Ooh, ooh.
And this was another streamer that came to that realization by doing that. You picked up on it, just kind of like the intuitively driven little exercise. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the clients, we've had clients, like Cass said, who can just kind of do it. And the reason is because they're really into acoustics or voices to begin with, and they've been practicing over the years, like different character voices. That always makes things a little bit easier. Or maybe they're singers, they've been in choir, or they're a wind instrument player, anything like that. They typically have a really easier understanding of, if you're pushing that far forward and that far up into the nasal passages, it is really close to where you would aim for your natural sounding femme voice in the soft palate area, right, mask of the face. And so they if they have that concept already and they're confident to practice on their own, record themselves, listen, get the feedback from others, and not allow it to build confidence for them and not allow it to impact them. It, and we've heard people get there on their own, or we've had a lot of people like Cass who can get maybe half, 2/3 of the way there, and then they come to us and they're like, "I know something's missing. What is it?" And we take them the rest of the way. So we know people can self-train. I do think it requires, what I see, I don't know what Cass would say, but what I see is it requires a confidence and a willingness to really record and listen to yourself over and over and over again. And lots of times people are not confident to do that, or they hate hearing themselves, or they just don't feel confident in their own ear for their own voice.
Hmm.
They don't trust their own auditory feedback. None of us sound like, to ourselves, like we do to other people. We all sound a bit lower to ourselves. Part of the
Yeah.
reason is that reverb along the bone, right, to the
Yeah,
ear,
we
the
were just
bone
hearing
conduction.
ourselves
So,
closer in, so naturally it's going to sound a little deeper.
exactly.
Yeah.
But
Right.
And like, yeah, no, I think like I was saying before, I think the biggest hurdle for a lot of clients is like self-confidence. And I'm a different breed of animal. I like my personal motto is if you want it bad enough, you'll find a way. If you don't, you'll find an excuse. And like I just go hard, you know what I mean? Like I want it, I'm gonna get it. Like that's my mentality.
I heard
Um,
psychologist Rick Hansen say that recently. If you're not changing it, you're choosing it. That doesn't
yeah.
apply to
Well,
everything, but
they told me in sales
Yeah.
one time, you're either selling them or they're selling you.
I like both of those.
Yeah.
I may be misattributing.
Yeah,
I
it
think it
doesn't.
was Rick Hansen. He's one of my favorites out there that I take a lot from. But in any case, it's the words that matter.
Yeah.
It was the John Lennon
It doesn't
quote. That was
apply
the John
to.
Lennon quote. That's right.
It doesn't apply to everything, like Hogue said, but I think, we've along the way, I've seen a few clients stall out, I think, for that very reason. Somewhere along the way, they realized this was not as urgent or pressing as they maybe thought it was in the beginning, or maybe they're just struggling to process now the capability that they have around their voice, and they're struggling to better understand what do I like for my voice. And so, we've
I,
never lost a client, but we have had clients. I've had a few clients along the way pause sessions like, I need to think more about this. I need to figure this out for myself. Or I'm suddenly realizing like it doesn't really matter to people at work or people in my personal life or whatever my settings are, what voice I'm using, and it's not impacting my confidence as much as possible. And that's like always the dream, I feel like, in a way, like it should just be, there should not be this pressure from society to sound a certain way in order to feel safe and confident.
Yeah,
Every voice is perfect. You should be able
that's
to
kind of what I meant
go
by the
out
the
and
comment
use,
about like self protection earlier, and just like putting on that
right,
mask and just kind of just navigating social interactions of prescribed notions of, well, this is who I'm supposed to be in this interaction, so I'll look and sound and model these behaviors just to prevent
and
backlash from
it's interesting when you
whatever
think about
exchange.
it
Which, yeah,
because you become trans to escape a gender norm, and yet you find yourself so often trying to conform to another one. And
yeah,
like,
I think about that too.
yeah, and there are quite a few trans people who just reject that entirely and just don't conform to any gender norm.
yeah,
And I enjoy the hell out of that. Uh,
yeah.
but like at the same time, for me personally, I just like being a girl. You know what I mean?
That's who you
So I mean,
are.
I'm like, it doesn't bother me, you know what I mean? Like personally, but like it was something that I kind of spent a lot of time thinking about, and I've known quite a few people who do kind of think about that too, you know what I mean? Like, am I just leaving one box to go into another? Like, I mean, in a way, yes, but is it that bad?
If it's the one you want to be in, then yeah. If it's the one you're more comfortable
Right.
in, yeah.
If it fits.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
it's a comfy box, I mean, why
You
not?
might
If
you
it
might, you
fits,
might
it
have put in
sits.
the wrong box to begin with. Um, Kat, someone in the chat had a question about kind of cost of services, how it's reimbursed. Specific question was, what would be the general average expected cost for like professional coaching for like a fem voice?
So in New Mexico, we accept most major insurances, including Medicaid and Medicare. And, typically people have some sort of copay with that. And in the other states that I'm licensed in, we're working on getting credentialed and contracted with the major insurances there now.
Sure,
It's
getting on
applied for
panel
Hawaii
stage and
Medicaid. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. It does take a while. But we keep the costs low. I've always priced the sessions really low, and a private pay session is $40 a session. Um, and then obviously NMGVC being a 501(c)(3) nonprofit, we fundraise, for the very purpose of helping to cover the cost for people. And lots of times our clients end up not really seeing any out-of-pocket cost
Okay.
to them. Sometimes clients get into a special situation where they're working with the instructor directly. They found the instructor through NMGVC, but for whatever reason, they end up setting up their own direct sessions with the instructor. And then in that case, they might be paying the instructor directly. But
Okay.
for the most part, NMGVC does a lot to help cover services when clients can't afford the cost. So.
Okay. Is any part of that sliding scale, or is it?
No, we've never done a sliding scale. Sorry, my allergies are so bad. My nose is running. We've never had a sliding scale. We've always just felt like $40 for a 30-minute session was the sweet spot.
Okay.
We've never had any pushback on that. And, you know, we had, funnily enough, in a state like New Mexico, where there's a lot of poverty and a lot of need, I really thought that people would be coming with more need for help and support around covering their sessions. But honestly, we haven't had as many requests as I thought we would have had overall. So, and I think probably people being able to use their insurance because New Mexico is a state that Medicaid is very popular here,
Hmm.
and Medicaid is it's like the best insurance in the state, and a lot of people qualify for Medicaid here. So
Okay.
we have found that just being able to accept insurance has really been the game changer. Um,
That's really good to
I
hear.
don't
I
even
mean,
have that
Medicaid
many.
is just bonkers,
Yeah,
and every other state it behaves a little bit differently as to
it
what
is.
reimbursement looks
Yes,
like for services, if allowable for
yes,
that. So
yes.
And
that's encouraging.
New
Did you mention
Mexico,
earlier other states you're like emerging into, like where you are now? Would you mind recapping where you are now and what you're exploring?
Yes. So I'm licensed and I have other therapists that are licensed in the states of California, Colorado, and Hawaii for telehealth services
Colorado and Hawaii. I
only.
thought so. Okay.
Where we just applied for to get on the Medicaid panel in Hawaii because that's another state that Medicaid is fairly popular. Um, in terms of how many people have coverage there and how well it pays out to providers and helps cover services for clients. So we're expecting to be able to do quite a bit via that route. And then we're kind of in the middle of our credentialing and contracting in California for a few of the major insurances, and Colorado, we're just kind of getting started. So, but
Okay.
we get a lot of requests from people in Colorado, as you can imagine, because they hear about NMGVC and then they want to know, are you up here
I was
too?
about to ask
So,
if so on your website, you've got the getting started page, and you just said the words getting started. So I'm like ready to share that. Is that the best tab to share for anybody that wants to kind of explore the next steps of kind of getting towards an intake?
exactly. So just go ahead and fill out that form. And even if you're out of state and want to upload your insurance, sometimes like Blue Cross Blue Shield is one that comes to mind right away. If it's out of state BCBS, sometimes we can do like a single payer authorization or something like that, and use insurance coverage, that way for the sessions. There are possibilities. So I always tell people, even if you're not in New Mexico, send all of your information. Send us where you're at, because in terms of licensed clinicians, it matters where the client is at, in terms of like where we're licensed, right? And
Yeah.
then send your insurance information. Like we just never know what's possible until we go into the system or call and find out. And if we can't truly are not able to serve somebody for whatever reason, now a few years into it, we know other clinicians and vocal instructors in other states who provide good, solid gender affirming voice care that we'd be happy to refer somebody to and would feel comfortable sending them
Oh, that's
that way.
amazing.
So,
A good old fashioned, if you can't be
yeah,
the source, be the resource.
on the topic
absolutely.
of
Yeah.
Yeah.
on the topic of like insurance and transitions and transgender health and all of that, I kind of just want to throw in some personal experience and advice for people transitioning and going
Sure.
through the medical system, because it is very important to be your own advocate. And
So
a lot of
important.
Fiercely.
times you have to fight for what you want and you have to
Mhm.
know what you're entitled to have. And New Mexico happens to be one of only, I believe, 16 transgender sanctuary states. So, I mean, my rights and medical rights are legally protected, like, you know what I mean? Um, but I would say it's really, you don't always need one, depending on what your situation is. You may, choose a informed consent clinic or something like that, but it is incredibly helpful for insurance purposes to have a gender dysphoria diagnosis on your record. And if you're ever denied care, you simply have to point out to your insurance that you have a gender dysphoria diagnosis provided by whatever, provider. And that under that, the care you're seeking is covered under the World Professional Association of Transgender Health Standards of Care version 8. Um, that the care you're seeking is medically necessary for treating gender dysphoria. And oftentimes that the care you're receiving requires repeat visits to have it be done properly and completely. And as long as you are always firm and assertive and confident in those things, like when you're, fighting your insurance and medical battles, like usually there's very little they can do in the end to fight against that
Okay.
because you deserve to exist.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's been times like in New Mexico, we have new protective healthcare provider laws on the books. We have protection laws around patients or clients who are seeking gender affirming healthcare. And so there's been times with the insurance where they try to deny, and we just pull out a copy of the law and we say, nope, you can't do that. You have to cover this. And typically they try to write it off as like, oh, we didn't know, or where is that in the little fine print of the, verbiage that we give clients, and
I
and
can
then
only
we
imagine they're
go
trying to
into
pull it.
the
Oh, we didn't know. Yeah.
yeah,
Oopsie
and we
doopsie. We
go into
deliberately chose not
the
to know this. Yeah.
we go into all that fine print of like lifetime limits and calendar year limits and things like that, and we point out to them, here's where it is. And so just to understand that on the insurance side, not to speak badly of customer service reps for insurance, but their job is to make your life difficult. Their
Oh,
job
yeah.
is to find reasons to deny, and
Create more
lots of
barriers than
times
on
they are
ramps, follow
working
script. Yeah.
they're working from a script. I was just going to say, lots of times they're working from a script. And lots of times, especially if they're new, they're not familiar with all that fine print that the
Mm-hmm.
insurance company has about what your specific plans, lifetime or calendar limits, or whatever it is, involves. So read all that really carefully and be ready to send a copy of any state laws that you have, as well as copies of their actual language around what you're entitled to. Just put it right in front of them, and then that makes it a lot harder on them to deny and reject. So,
And in a lot of cases, uh, you can sometimes things that aren't covered. Say, for example, a lot of insurance providers do not cover facial feminization surgery.
yeah,
You can, on your own, research providers for this service and submit referrals. They will deny it, and you can appeal it on the
appeal it.
basis of gender dysphoria and the treatment of such.
Yes.
And in many cases, you can get things covered that they wouldn't normally cover just by fighting tooth and nail for what you
Mm-hmm.
need.
Yes. Yes, keep fighting. That's the thing. People give up because it's time consuming and it makes people's brains hurt, which I totally understand, right? It's like,
Yeah.
but I know of a client that we had at the clinic working on voice who got her facial feminization surgery approved after fighting for almost 12 months straight with the insurance. And all she did is she kept appealing and going back to the language in their written verbiage and just over and over and over until they finally approved it. But I've also had like the state Medicaid director for New Mexico called me several months ago and was doing like interviewing providers. How's it going? Are we doing a good job? And one of the things that she told me was a lot of people don't know that if they just do that first level appeal, in over 50% of cases, the rejection or denial will be overturned and you'll be granted the uh the proceed whatever it is, the service
Yeah.
that you're seeking. So that was, I always try to tell clients that just even that first level appeal will get you pretty far because they look at all those appeals individually, and lots of times the client or the patient has all their documentation in a row and they're like, oh yeah, it should have been approved, right? So I mean, over 50% is a pretty large percentage, more than 1 in 2 appeals get
It's a better
over.
chance than 0 or 3% or whatever else. But yeah, it sounds like a matter of having
Absolutely.
that kind of padding on the front end. Uh, One, the preparation on how to navigate a system that is literally designed to discourage, because well, most
It
women
is.
verse.
It is. I am
That sounds like
so
hyperbole, but it
disgusted
really is designed to discourage. But
It is.
having a
as
notion
a
in mind to kind
provider.
of perseverate on that and self
Yes.
advocate. The best way to do that, like what Cass was describing, is just be aware and empowered by what protections that you have in place. Be prepared to cite them, and yeah, listen to people like yourselves who can nurture and help kind of shepherd that experience, because healthcare navigation anywhere, even in mental health, you'd think even in mental health it would be even easier, like lower friction. It's not always.
No, I as being on the provider side, I mean, I think as consumers, we and patients, we all know how hard it is, right? But being on the provider side, I feel even more disgusted. The hoops that they make us jump through as well, to get services approved for clients, get new authorizations, things like that. I mean, it really is frustrating and disgusting, and then, you know, humiliating at times. And we had a
Yeah.
client where, the insurance provider said, "Well, prove to us that." This client needs voice sessions due to a congenital birth defect. And so, with client permission, we actually wrote an appeal up 2 appeal letters stating that their gender dysphoria, their gender identity was representative of a congenital birth defect in order to get them to approve the speech therapy sessions for voice transition. I mean, it was just crazy to me, like how far we had to go.
Hoop jumping. Yeah.
And
But
that's
like
that's
Cass
so
said, it was
wild.
that third level of, I know it's so wild, but like you said, Cass, that third level appeal is when we got it.
So yeah,
It's so
expect the appeal.
incredibly triggering to somebody's
Yes,
like sense of
that's
imposter
exactly.
syndrome because like
Yep.
imposter syndrome is such intrinsically a part of being trans that many psychologists consider it a sign of being trans. And for the insurance to just sit around and like, I mean, basically medically gaslight you is just
Yes,
Yeah.
insane.
exactly. Yes, and the thing
Yeah.
about it was is like it was a win for us. So it was like, yes, we got it. Now this client can have their sessions covered, but at what cost along the way to somebody's emotional and mental health?
Well,
I
yeah, just the
mean,
delay after so much effort of that.
but
Uh,
triggering and traumatizing to have to put that into words. Like we had to send the client the letter to read and approve because we're not going to write something like that without client permission and approval.
yeah.
And to have to put somebody through that is, I just, it's so wrong on so many levels. It's hard to know where to start.
I'm glad you were present enough to help navigate that, and yeah, good on you both for knowing kind of the resilience that's required to make it
It
through,
is
and just
because
telling
people
everybody
get
to like
tired.
expect appeals, expect some discouragement on the opposite side, but cheerleading always on the right side.
That's
You
However
right.
know,
many appeals
and
it
it's
takes.
It's
it's
true.
wild to me. I've known so many different people in the course of my life. You know what I mean? Like combat veterans, nurses, all sorts of different people. And as much as they may struggle with self-confidence, honestly, trans people are like the bravest people I've ever met in my life.
Yeah.
Like, you have to defy so much of society's BS to just be who you are.
Yeah.
I totally
And
agree with that.
it's wild. And like, I still remember like when I was transitioning, the fear and anxiety I had over just going into women's clothing department, shopping for feminine deodorant, looking for, oh, God for God forbid underwear. Oh no. You know what I mean? Like makeup. Like it's like and it's so discouraging when you walk through a store and you're dressed and you like your outfit and then you walk by and after you pass, you can hear people laughing. And you
Yeah.
like for some people they break down. For me, I have to fight that part of me that wants to turn around and just be like, what the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we can hear all day, we're not responsible for someone's emotional insecurities and how they project them. That doesn't make it sting any
Yeah,
less.
yeah. I actually walked by a guy at Walmart. He was sitting on a bench and he was like staring at me the whole time. And I just walked by him and I'm like, did your mother teach you to stare like that?
Yeah, and I sometimes I know people get a little tired of that word brave, but I agree with Cass that over and over and over again, people really have to do a lot. We see that every single week. Really have to do a lot just to exist and be accepted in society. And it does wear down on people. And I think there is a certain amount of emotional and mental fortitude that people build up in order to just keep going one more day, one more hour with expressing themselves authentically and identifying in terms of who they truly are and continuing to figure that out. I mean, for a lot of people, it's not like a straight road, right? It's not
Hmm.
like just being straight to like this other thing. It's a winding, weaving path. I know for my own child, he really considers himself more non-binary, more gender fluid, but he presents as a boy and he goes with that kind of stereotype because he wants to fit in at school. And that is like the way he leans more most days, and he wants friends and he wants to like fit in and be accepted and all this stuff. And that, wears down on him mentally sometimes. It's really hard and he gets discouraged. But I see that with my other clients too, especially if they're like, they can be out maybe with their friends and their family, but then they've got to go to work and they've got to, you know, mask or whatever they've got to do. They've got to present this other way that they don't feel comfortable. I mean, it's a grind. It's really, really hard.
Yeah.
Um,
I can imagine
And
that
it's like
just the
something,
fatigue that sets in at the end of the day after having to just be so
totally.
aware.
and it kind
Yes.
of comes back to something I've heard Kat say before. Kat said to me, and it kind of resonated to me with me. The trans femme experience is the feminine experience amplified.
Amplified. Yeah.
And it really resonates me with me because I do feel a lot of the time that I have to put in 2 to 3 times as much work as a cis woman to get to the same place, but to only get a half or a third of the respect, which is
Right.
already kind of diminished. And it's something we see over the course of vocal training with a lot of clients. Like Kat was saying, with some of the trans mass clients, they'll say, now that my voice is deeper, people treat me with more respect. And a lot of the trans femme clients will, they get less, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Way less.
What you were saying earlier, it's
less.
unrepresented. So by definition, from unrepresented, it's underrepresented and
Mhm.
marginalized entire population,
Mm,
especially for in accordance with the school of thought of existing in a pretty patriarchal society, and we're raised with uh, just anecdotal examples of parenting styles who tell a child, and this ties into what you were saying earlier, Kat. Not even down to just like clothing or toys, but telling a boy they swing like a girl, and then lessening
Right.
and
Yes.
minimizing and just taking an entire gender and saying that they're weaker and frailer and don't behave that way
Yes.
because it makes you
Great
lesser.
example.
Like
Yes.
telling a little boy that
Hmm.
and not having them bring awareness to, wait, isn't mom a girl and you're telling me not to behave like her? Why? Why would I avoid that?
Yeah.
Because rules
Yeah.
is rules, son. Don't cry like a girl.
Yes.
Don't fill in
Right.
the blank like a girl. I mean, I heard that growing up, and it got to a
Right.
point where I started noticing like, no, this is wrong. I mean, I
Yeah.
had the added benefit of
Yeah.
being raised for the most, at some point in my life, I had the added benefit of, strange as it sounds, my parents separating, and then the benefit of watching my mom just raise me for the most part as a single woman, and watching her navigate a pretty patriarchal society and how she's treated, and uh, I was sensitive to that. I paid attention to a lot of the just passing glances and comments from men and any other man in my life, more or less reasserting that same kind of patriarchal bullshit that I just never really agreed with. And even at that age, like so many kids, didn't really have the vernacular to articulate. And just didn't. It wasn't there yet, but it could just kind of like sense some like deep intrinsic like this is wrong. I don't agree with this, but ties directly into the schemas that we were mentioning earlier. And that
It
tied into
does.
the bigger
And
picture of what Cass is representing of why it's so difficult to navigate society and like thinking about am I behaving just in accordance with what's not going to exacerbate somebody's fear-based, shame-based notions of how they would feel safe interacting with me.
Yeah, no, I was walking down
well
the
said.
street the other night or the other day with my boyfriend, and I thought his sister was gonna give us a ride. I didn't realize we were walking, and so I was wearing heels, and like I'm like, "Ah, should I change my shoes? Oh, I can't change my shoes. It's gonna make my whole outfit look stupid. Oh, fine. We have to walk a different way." And so we were walking along some main roads that had sidewalks, and I'm just walking along and I hear this dude yell out the window, "Hey, them shoes don't fit you, bro." And like I heard what he said, and like I honestly wanted to yank him out of the car and beat his ass on the street. But like I decided, you know what? I'm in these heels. I could do it, but I'm not. And
With the
like
heels, yeah.
I did you know what I mean?
Do they
Like
fit your
um
face? Oh,
And I kept walking, and the guy said it again. And I'm just like, I'm thinking to myself, this is really funny because he really wants me to hear this. And he really wants me to
Yes.
respond to this, but
Yes.
I'm just not. And this
yeah.
is going to stick with this
Yep.
guy in his head like a splinter in his brain tissue for like
That you
weeks.
didn't engage. Yeah, like not giving them the energy, not giving them the engagement is a lesson in itself because like what Hogue said really struck me when we're using terms as a society like that, like you swing like a girl. We're not only comparing the two sexes, right? And comparing genders and when teaching people not only how you treat other people, but then what we ourselves will deem acceptable behavior from others,
Yeah.
because it's not just the little boy that's affected in that moment, it's the little girls hearing that too, like, oh, that's
Oh, yeah.
acceptable.
And anybody deserves
My
to be shielded
gender,
from that.
right?
If I hear it
And
now,
so
I
what I
jump
love
in
about
front of it
Cass is like,
immediately.
Cass is always like a great representation to me of a woman who like not only knows like her own self-worth, but also doesn't put up with any BS as to like what behaviors others are demonstrating around her. She just does not, she doesn't give it the time of day. And I think that's really, really important, especially for our trans femme clients who are losing power and privilege the further into their transition they go. I've had plenty of femme voice clients speak to like, can I talk to you about the creepy guy that was like stalking me in the grocery store and following me around, taking pictures of me? Like it was strangely affirming, but it was also really icky and gross. I don't know what to do about this. Like I've heard so many stories like that. And I
Mm,
think Cass is such a great example of how protect yourself as a woman, and don't feed into that aggressive and negative energy from others, which again, like she
yeah.
said, and I always say is amplified for trans women. It's the female experience. It's the experience of all women. It's just amplified when you're a trans woman because there's so many additional factors
Yeah,
at
like
play.
what less than 3% of the population, but still such a huge target for vulnerability. And that's what I wanted to
Right.
talk about earlier too, which could be an entire hour on its own. But just the data that supports like use of gender affirming care consequently reduces use of other healthcare services, arguably more expensive services, and certainly potentially services that may be related to self harm. All of those go down just by utilizing, uh, you know, affirming spaces, but any semblance of gender affirming care, whether it's mental health or any other facet of healthcare in support of that person's identity, consequently reduces utilization of healthcare services overall. Whatever that's related to, it's not just mental health services. And so, like, if we're looking at, insurance products and the bean counters behind the scripts that are driven to disincentivize and discourage, it stands to reason that it behooves them and all parties financially to cut the bullshit,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and we know, we have people tell us you're doing life-saving work, and we know it's true. And, last year we lost somebody to suicide who was on the wait list for voice services. And, we had somebody who was in their life kind of tell us it's because they were on the wait list. They really needed their voice training as soon as possible. They just felt like it wasn't possible to go on without it. Cass and I have at least one client together we serve that speaks of this, to us almost every week as well. We know it's a real thought in people's heads, clients' heads, and and I think that if other providers, if insurance companies could get better training, just really even sit in 5 minutes of a session with us, I think they would just see how badly needed it is to support people. And I really just think of it as supporting humans, right? It's just
I think you're
humans
absolutely
supporting
right.
humans. It's not just gender affirming voice care, but it's just like sitting there and really listening and being present in the moment and accepting what people are telling us and validating them and honoring everything that they're saying. And then saying, being there and saying, we're going to help you. We're going to help you achieve this goal, and we're going to be with you every step of the way. And we need more providers like that in healthcare.
Yeah,
We
I
need
mean, I
more
imagine
human
it's an
beings like
open
that in
invitation to
general. But
anybody who could express that
yeah,
curiosity from policymakers or otherwise. Just like, yeah, if you're doing anything that directly impacts how comfortable someone gets to live their life, how
right,
closely aligned are you with that population that you're speaking to or against? Do you know a trans person? Do you have
right.
a queer person
And
in your entire social stratosphere? That
and
that
sometimes
and if not, get to know them and humanize them, so that they're not this othered person that you may have been taught to demonize.
Yes, exactly.
sometimes in our socio-political climate, in this hellscape of late-stage capitalism that we live in, it's easy to look at the actions of certain states and not recognize how, in some ways, lucky we have it. I don't know if you're aware of this, but 2 days ago on the 30th, the UK used emergency powers to criminalize the possession of puberty blockers, making them
Mm.
the most anti trans liberal democracy on the planet so far. And that's not even getting into the things Russia's done.
I
But
knew they were headed that direction. I did not know they'd actually done it.
possession is criminalized on the same extent as cocaine or heroin.
Yeah, I knew they were headed that direction.
It's such an
So, I
unnecessary
mean,
extreme, but we know
So
what's driving
unnecessary.
it too. I mean, we know it's just the most toxic version of a patriarchal, probably theocratic society, and
Mm.
just coming from a very selfish, gross place.
and it's all because
And
people go out of their way to publish misinformation like the Cass review. And then they
Yes,
write
that's what I was thinking.
legislation based on BS and
yeah,
nonsense and unsubstantiated drivel.
or they'll find one little confirmation bias, probably poorly methodologically driven. There's a word. The methodology of a very flawed methodology of whatever research supports their already established social bias, and then latch onto that and then use that to perpetuate their policies and misinformation. Is when you say we've got evidence to support, and if they can struggle through saying the words evidence to support, the data supports my hate. is more or less what they're after,
Mhm.
and it doesn't. In so many cases, it doesn't.
And
Yeah.
it really, in terms of objective evidence-based practice, it really is a discredit to the healthcare profession overall to bring somebody on board that doesn't have any experience serving um, clients receiving gender affirming care and put them in charge of this major longitudinal study that then just spouts out this information, this data, whatever they've collected that, like you say, Hogue, goes to serve whatever purpose it is that they were aiming for in the beginning. I mean, clearly their aim was always to criminalize puberty blockers. Otherwise, why hire this provider who has no experience with a gender diverse um,
Yeah, and I
community
mentioned that
and serving
experience, that
them?
exposure to anybody, especially for like policymakers of any variety, to take that
Mhm.
into consideration because it's literally a deep canvassing strategy. So, like those going door to door, attempting to dissuade or persuade and change the minds of someone who may have a very, what they think is a closely held opinion about, fill in the blank, hot button issue that really shouldn't be a hot button issue, but it is just our current kind of U.S. politic. Using that phrasing of how do you know what you know? How did you come to know what you know? Who gave you this information? Did it
Mhm.
come from a place who has an agenda that would be self-serving? Do you know any persons affected by this information that you're spreading? And if not, would you be curious enough to do so? And at that point, or
Mhm.
could I share a story with you about a person affected by these policies, like a bathroom bill kind of scenario, who's negatively
Right.
impacted just in where they can do number one or number two, due to some maligned vitriol that doesn't have to be there, and see if they can start getting those wheels turning of what how do I know what I know? Was I potentially fed some misinformation, some self-serving propaganda? And once those wheels
Mm.
start turning, they can start softening and then get to that point that we're all born with, that innate empathy and that human connection, and realize, like, oh, yeah, I was fed a line of bullshit. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry.
It's
I,
amazing to me
yeah, I
that
think if anybody looks at it
somehow,
globally and social connectedness, they realize that politically they're much further left than they ever realized. And they realize they
yeah,
don't want to
I
live
agree.
in,
I
a
agree.
monarchy or be
I think
told
if
where to
people,
go and what to do and how to live,
yeah, no, I
plainly
think if
stated.
most people broke down their beliefs, they'd realize if they applied critical thought, they'd realize they're actually socialists.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, that's another story. I lost my train of thought. I was going to interject with a thing, and then my
I
brain slipped
wanted to
away.
say that I love Hogue. It has such these great, like, bigger picture explanations and perspectives. But when Kyle and I trained on gender identity and expression, when he was younger, we would go around locally and we would say, you don't need to look any further than like your bathroom in your own home. Every bathroom in America
Hmm.
and every home in America is gender neutral.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like,
Until we
let's just
start
start
decorating
there.
it,
yeah. That's what I
Right.
was gonna say is that it's amazing to me that somehow as a trans
It's like,
woman I'm at my
right.
most threatening while I'm urinating.
That too, but like also when you go home, you're sharing the bathroom with all genders in the household. So how come when you go out into the
Yeah.
community, it's suddenly this scary
Well,
thing?
yeah,
thing people lose sight of, like, it
because it's
was
not a
only
scary
10
thing.
or 20 years ago when people were making a big deal about lesbians being in the bathroom because oh,
Yeah, that's true.
they made
Yeah,
prey on the
I
straights
remember
in there.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of it ties
And I mean,
into manufactured consent too, of what
mm,
public mouthpieces of notoriety
it
have a larger platform to espouse those
mm,
harmful ideologies.
it really comes
Because
into
the
the
meemaws and the
recycling.
peepaws sitting at home watching Fox News all day, they're glued to that and they're going to share it with their friends
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. And it's one of those systematic
Yeah.
issues that I think
Well,
many of us
it's
here, friends of
also
the community, are actively combating.
Mm.
It's also the recycling of propaganda and the repeating of history. And a lot of people
It
Yeah,
totally
forget
is.
that the same propaganda that was used against homosexual men in the 1950s is being used against transgender people right now. They label us groomers and pedophiles and freaks and creeps and
Absolute
everything else.
unfounded. Yeah.
And we have no interest in such foolery. Like, these are like your projections. Like, what is wrong with you to make you jump to that at the first possible instance? Like, that is on your brain. Tell me more about you, please.
Yeah. And it's usually coming from such a superficial place too, like adding so much anger behind such a small thing that they could just have more existential satisfaction with their own selves by not allowing such anger to rise about a person they're never going to really interact with anyway. So, example, a few weeks
Hmm.
ago, I was going to the gym, and it's one of those gyms where they have 60 TVs up, and one channel's on CNN, one channel's on Fox News. CNN's covering, Trump trial. Fox News is covering this pink-haired queer person who is telling children they can identify as seasons. Oh my goodness, what a threat to our society. Queer people can identify as seasons, and then it turned it into the whole groomer rhetoric of what's being shared there, and there were so many holes in their logic and such a more or less fabricated source and someone taking a statement completely out of context. More or less the equivalent
Right.
of the metaphor of like, yeah, throughout our lives we go through different seasons in our changes. And if we're allowing a child to say like, yeah, I'm going through a different season right now and adopting that verbiage, literally no harm to that, psychological or otherwise. It doesn't mean that they're, the hackneyed rhetoric that usually is tacked onto that is, oh, so if they want to identify as a cat or a dog, we can do that too. And no, that's not where we're taking things. You exaggerated moron. That's not where we're taking things.
I was watching a
Yeah.
video one time. It's just loosely based on that. Just real quick. I was watching a video
Yeah.
one time and it was really funny. It was just one of those, random things I watch at night, um, professional biologist responds to questions from Twitter or something like that, right? And one of the questions was like, does this specific animal have gender? Or like how many genders does this or like animal have? And the guy just looks at the camera and he's like, animals have a biological sex. Gender identity is
Right.
uniquely human. Please stop asking me ignorant questions.
I was just going to say the same thing that I think it really speaks to the idea that more public education around gender as a social construct is needed and to really explain the difference to people between the two biological sexes and all the different gender identities
Hmm.
that exist and that how
And that
important it is that the
intersex is as
language
common as like red hair, you know?
that yes, that too. And that the language that we use to talk about gender, it really needs to come from the community so that we need more public education in terms of what the history is there
Yeah,
of the language that came from the medical community first and the mental health community first. And now that we want to see that power being taken back by the community and coming up with the language to use that best describe how people identify, how they express and present themselves, what
yeah,
pronouns they're using, all of these things. Because Kyle and I get a lot of questions like, I don't know what the pronouns are up to, but like a few years ago, I think there was like 72 different pronouns that were documented on Google or something like that. And people will ask me like, is 72 different, sets of pronouns really necessary? And it's like, yes. And here's why, because
yeah.
the community is owed the right to take back that power and come up with a language that best conveys who they are to other people, not people in the healthcare, medical, or whatever community, society dictating to them. Here's the language you're going to use. Here's the words we're going to label you with, and we're going to diagnose you and pathologize you on top of that, right?
Yeah,
So,
and it's funny to think of like adding those if you study like language at all, which I'm not telling Eve this, but just the origins, like etymology in general, and then thinking about the English language and how we're just an amalgam of so many other languages anyway, but then trying to add like some kind of rigid focus on that too, like just this unnecessary rule system for
yeah.
gender-based conversations just makes no sense.
And on the topic of language, people like to argue about pronouns all the time, despite the fact that it came
No,
free with your
it's a
entire speaking
strange
a language thing.
Exactly.
And
argument.
like, this is not the first time in human history of linguistics that we
From
have
well before
had,
Shakespeare, for that matter. Like,
like, what do you call them? The, uh, what's the name? Something pronoun like xenopronouns. What's the name?
I'm not
For
sure.
the non-typical she, her, he, him, they, them.
Oh,
Uh,
these are
The Zem.
yeah, like proto
is it
pronouns.
them?
Okay,
I always
proto-pronouns. I think
forget
What's
that's
the
for
that.
name?
sure.
Is that it? Okay,
I
I
think
always forget
so.
the term.
Someone else here may
But
know.
like, we've done this before historically. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this isn't a new concept. Like, I don't know. People get so weird about things like that. And I find more often it's not that they have an issue with pronouns, it's that they just simply have an issue with the people using them and they're looking for an excuse to project their nonsense.
Yeah, and then the consent was then
Yeah, and
manufactured for them to buy into that ideology, and um, yeah,
some
so much
languages
more.
are very gendered, and so we get kind of that more gendered language because it's trickled down through other languages. But then there's plenty of cultures and languages that recognize different genders, many different types of genders, and different types of pronouns, including gender neutral pronouns, to refer to people. So I think it's also about as a country what we've adopted linguistically and in terms of our everyday communication use as this is how we talk and this is what we project to people. But there's also like a component of capitalism, consumerism there. There has been some discussion around the two binary genders being used in terms of department stores to promote clothing sales and
Yeah, I
separating
mean, our
genders in that
overall,
way.
a lot of what it measures up to, and I don't want to overgeneralize, but like uh, a lot of our cultural competency is directly impacted by what literacy we've been provided.
Right.
Whether that literacy be
And how
education
we've been
literacy, media
marketed too.
literacy, social literacy, just using literacy as like an umbrella overall, what we've been provided or prescribed
Right.
directly impacting our cultural competency. And I think it speaks entirely to the last couple of hours that we've been chatting. I mean, just so much of what we've discussed fits right into that of if we could better measure and create space for having that sort of literacy embraced at an early age, then that begets cultural competency as we grow into our adult
Yeah.
lives and that shared space that we have for each other.
And it's
Yeah, it
funny,
starts with
it's like,
teaching.
I was just gonna say, it's funny because yeah, you do see that example with like, you see it a lot with like, Republicans, conservatives, whatever,
Oh,
who
I was
like,
thinking of like,
talking
family
about the
members of my
liberal
own just
arts
sharing the most
colleges, like,
boomer memes on
yeah,
Facebook
like,
day in and
oh no, my kid went off to college and experienced like other cultures and learned that other people exist and everything we taught them was kind of wrong. And like, oh, why are they, oh, I hate it so much.
That's like, yes, I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of children growing up in really stereotypical environments and who are taught to not think for themselves. They're not taught that any different thought than what they're given is okay, or critical thinking skills are okay. It's okay to come up
yeah,
with a different answer or a different way to get to that answer. And that's the very foundation because I do early intervention work and I used to work in the schools. I always feel like that's the foundation is teaching kids first it's okay to have a different thought or get there a different way because that
yeah,
opens up the world for somebody like then to think about themselves reflectively like okay wait am I this or am I
Mm,
that or whatever, right?
yeah,
Am I what these people have told me I am or do I feel like I'm different,
yeah.
or just not what they've labeled me as. For a lot of, just speaking as a cis woman, a lot of women just don't neatly fit into the stereotypical um, box that we've created for women. I mean, most women I know don't fit into that and are trying really, really hard to do so. And it starts in childhood. It starts by, you know, being fed information and marketed to in certain ways and then being reinforced at home. This is the way that girls do it. This is the
Hmm.
way, you know, to do
And
this or whatever. So
I think it's so critically important for kids to learn how to think rather than what to
so
think.
critical thinking.
Exactly. Like
Come
nurture
up with
that
more
critical
than one way to
thinking.
get there. Yes.
Hmm.
Come up with more than one way to get there, not just another way to get there, but come up with more than one way to get
Mhm.
there and don't accept what somebody tells you. Find out for yourself. Go research it for yourself. See if you agree. And if you don't agree, figure out why and build your information around that and then find out something else and add that to the mix. Ask
Yeah,
a question.
kind of a Socratic approach.
Right.
Yeah.
To reflect on ourselves, it's easy sometimes to see externally this for other people, but then when it comes to reflecting for ourselves and accepting that as okay, a lot of us are not confident to do that and shy away from that. And I think that is what's powerful in the voice training room. A lot of times is we see so many clients figure out for themselves, wait, maybe I want my phone voice to skew a little bit more gender neutral, or maybe I do want to be able to toggle back and forth between voices. And it can be just circling back in as simple a way as that. And I think because voice is so intimate and so personal, it opens doors to see into their own self in other ways. Once that voice door is open and they're seeing their voice, they're hearing their voice in different ways and they're seeing their own self in a different way from that perspective, more doors are opening. It's like, I want to think about this other thing for myself. I want to think about this. I want to think about that. And that's really great to see people being able to explore and for themselves, not
Yeah, that
what anybody else has to
self-accommodation,
say about you.
to give that gift at like
Yeah.
the earliest age possible would be
Yes.
magic.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. What a great conversation. Hogue, thank you for the
Thank you
Yeah.
space
for
and
joining us.
time
I
to do
sorry
this.
you couldn't see me this entire time. I feel like I've just been this
That's okay.
disembodied voice to you this entire time.
Yeah, this was amazing. This was so good, like
Yeah.
informative and productive.
Yeah,
Hmm.
do you feel comfortable kind of wrapping things up from here, or what would you like to do? I see if
Oh yeah, I
chat
know
has
we're
any
way
more
over
questions
time. I feel
before
so
we,
bad.
you know, sashay on out of here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll be sure to share, all of your links again, my Discord, and it reduce all barriers to finding you and celebrate in support of your programming. I again selfishly want your program to be everywhere available for those that need it.
I wish it could be. We need more people doing this work. I mean, I think that it's so hard because the vocal instructors, they have to train the same as any clinician would, and then clinicians aren't coming out of grad school with any of this knowledge. So we have to there's always this front loading work that we're doing to train people up. Um, it's time consuming, and we're all just like one person on the team trying to do our best and give the most bandwidth that we have to give. So, but hopefully we do start popping up more places and just I think we're really looking to serve just like where we've had requests and like where we know there's not access to services for voice training and transition. Like Hawaii is, we there was one, I think, gender affirming provider location. I don't know if they were doing voice or not, but they closed down like a couple years ago due to
Okay.
funding or some other issues. Yeah. And
If you
so
have any kind of a global resource list, if you ever feel comfortable sharing that, I mean, I've got a resource channel in my Discord too, for like mental health resources. I can always put stuff there to help anybody kind of navigate that. If they can find something, relevant to their needs and kind of in their geography, and maybe
And I just kind of
maybe
want
yes,
to
there
add
is. I'll find it. Go ahead,
okay,
Cass. Sorry.
I just want to add right before the end that,
sure.
like, yeah, I do really enjoy like helping people to learn about this and discover this for themselves because so many people don't even know that this is a possibility, and so many people consider things like vocal fold surgery and things like that,
Well, yeah, I
which
mean, up
I
until less than a
mean
month ago, Cass, I didn't
can
I didn't know.
yeah, things can not go well with that.
Thank you for bringing that up, Cass. Great. We have way too many clients come to us and say, I wanted to come see you first because I was considering the vocal fold surgery, but I want to see if this will work for me first. I'm like, thank goodness you came to us. Do not do that. So if I can just give
Yeah,
my
avoiding
1 minute
something more
spiel super
invasive. Yeah.
quick. Yes, it's extremely invasive. And I just want to tell everybody listening out there, you are a guinea pig at this point. There is one shot to get this right when they go in and they're lasering your vocal folds. The vocal folds are very tiny. So to give you an example, anyone who's been through a testosterone puberty, your vocal folds are about 2/3 the length of a quarter, an American sized quarter. And estrogen puberty vocal folds are roughly the length of a penny. So they're very, very, very small and they're thin too. And you're asking a surgeon who doesn't have experience. Okay, the only experience they have is whoever came before you
Mm-hmm.
and probably they messed up on. Okay, whoever came before you, you're asking them to take a laser or, metal tools and shave off tissue from this really, really tiny
Not a lot of margin for error.
area.
Yeah.
There's no margin for error. And by the way, whatever they mess up, they cannot go back and fix. You've got one shot to get this right. They've got one shot to get this right. Whatever they do, you're stuck with. And we've actually had clients come and ask for vocal rehab because they've been through this process. To date, I have not met one single person who's happy with the vocal fold surgery they received. And I think we all know there's plenty of lawsuits out there. And this is why they charge so much money. And this is why they have you sign so many waivers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is how bottom surgery used to be, right? And now bottom surgery is a lot safer, unfortunately at the cost of everybody who came before, but it's a lot more accurate and it's a lot more satisfying on the other end for patients are having better experiences and things like that. So I
Yeah.
always tell
Reduced rate
people
of regret, that sort of thing.
until they can guarantee you satisfactory experience 100% after vocal fold surgery, don't do it. There is absolutely no need to. There are plenty of other techniques to help transition your voice. I mean, I always tell people until they're putting it on Amazon for $9.99, it is not safe for you. Don't go be a guinea pig. Don't get up on that table. Don't shell out 20 grand or whatever they're charging these days for that. Just don't do it. Don't do it. There's no research to support it. All the research and anecdotal information that we have is not good. I don't care what you see on TikTok or Instagram or anything like that. I just saw a surgeon who's down in South America was promoting how they did this great vocal fold surgery. It's like, no, just
Another
don't do
place where
that.
media
Don't,
literacy comes in to
totally.
one's benefit or detriment.
Yeah,
You get the mercy
exactly.
of the
I just say,
qualifications and the bona fides of a TikTok influencer.
yeah, exactly. If you're seeing it on TikTok, I mean, I also post my videos on TikTok, but I
Oh yeah,
mean,
and there's
if a
good
doctor is
information
up
out
on
there. It's just knowing how to find it and what you're
there
seeing
is good
and qualifying
information,
it, how to
but
qualify
don't
it.
just exactly qualify. Do your own research. Google, find people who have written about this, undergone the process, see what they say. The evidence is the information and evidence and all the things that you can find out there is overwhelmingly in the direction of do not do this. Be safe. Do not do this. Don't let them experiment on you.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I would, if my son came to me and wanted to do it, I would say no. I would put my body in front of the door. There's no way I'd let him do vocal fold surgery. So please just do not do it. It's not time. It's not ready yet.
Yeah. Well, thank
Someday
you
it
for those
probably
words of
will be,
caution.
honestly, the way technology is. Someday, maybe they will, you
Yeah.
know, they are getting more and more precise with these things. I mean, they are, but we're not there yet for vocal fold surgery. So
Like it can be frustrating and it can be a process and
it is.
it does take time, but at the end of the day, like, yeah, no, like voice
Want to be
modulation
safe?
is very safe. It's not stressful on anything on the vocal tract. It becomes second nature. You don't think about it. It's so much safer of a route to go.
Yeah.
And
So
you
much
have more
safer.
flexibility in your voice. If you want to go back, you can
The
go
thing,
back.
you can do
If
all
you
these
want to,
things.
yeah, it's not like permanent. You have like so
Yeah.
much, you have all the control over your voice. Whereas
Uh,
when they do that, you are going to lose something.
Yes. you won't be able to do everything that you used to be able to do. And I also just have a little bit of criticism because I hear way too many SLPs doing gender affirming voice work out there who are like, well, I don't really recommend it, but I'm not quite sure because I'm not up on the research. I mean, don't let providers talk to you that way either. This is not safe to do right now. Do not do it.
Yeah.
Just don't do it.
Well, thank you for all of that.
Sorry
Cassie,
to get up
thank
on
you
my soapbox.
for
I
all of
don't
your
really.
experience that you've shared from, the precipitating events before you walked in the door of the clinic and, the space that they've held for you and created and the program direction that you connected with that helped you better connect with yourself. That's been really special to hear. And I'm grateful for you for taking the time to do that. We've got a lot of gratitude and chat too from I think people that it's even
Oh, that's so
5 seconds
awesome.
of information throughout this entire conversation benefited them. So yeah, we've got
Oh,
several
that's so
several thank
great.
yous here that I don't know if Kat you can see them or not, but
I can't.
gratitude has been
I don't know how to
expressed.
navigate. I'm so sorry. This is great. Hogue, thank you, because I just think we do need more conversations like this and education like this around voice in particular, because it is, it's one of those things people don't know a lot about. And having Cassandra and having Cass on today as somebody who can speak to the curriculum, both from a client and instructor side, is so invaluable. I mean, we always want to be authentic and transparent, and we want people to know that we are doing our very best to support people in
Yeah.
safe ways.
And the
Yeah,
discussion is like, I mean, it's important for trans people like to know your options and to know that it's not
exactly.
out of your
No,
reach and to know the risks and everything, right?
yes,
But it's equally
options.
important for cis people because oftentimes the only exposure cis people have to people like me or other people like me um, are sitcoms and truly egregious, problematic, and harmful false representations.
Oh, absolutely.
Um, you know what I mean? Like they're just horrible shows out there. Probably the worst is like How I Met Your Mother. I cannot
Or
stand
like
that
Silence of
garbage.
the
Or like
Lambs came to mind
or the
too.
Big Bang Theory is just so terrible. I can't even watch it anymore. And ever since I've started watching things critically, I just cannot watch Family Guy or South Park or anything like
Yes, I'm the
that
same
because
way.
Yeah,
always a series of punching down and othering
Yep.
and
I'm
talking
with
down
you.
about
That's the
other
other. Yeah, I
groups.
think.
And it's so destructive. And like, I mean, with us being so politicized and so targeted right now, that is
Yes.
Yeah, the,
just
the
the
big picture
absolute most
risk of them
harmful
continuing
thing.
to perpetuate that type of humor is
And
of
it's
no real
important.
long-standing benefit.
It's important that cis people like are educated about us and know who we are and have exposure to us and know us so that they can look at that and say, that ain't right.
Yeah, and at some
Knock
point
that
you'd think
off.
like big top comedians like say Chappelle would get tired of telling the same joke for 40 years because
And it
eventually
makes me
people are going to get tired
sad
of hearing the same joke
when
for 40 years and
someone
just like, maybe find another
it
bit,
makes
you know?
it makes me sad and infuriated when someone who has directly experienced racism and bigotry can turn around and be a bigot.
Yeah,
You should know better.
it is
What is wrong with
confounding. It
you?
is absolutely
Why
confounding.
have you not learned from this lesson?
Yeah.
And everybody has experienced that. But yeah, Cass, thank you to speaking for speaking to that, because that's exactly what I was meaning, which is it's one thing for me to get on here and, explain and provide the information, and that's great. But it's so much more meaningful, so much better for everybody, both within the community and cisgender people, to see Cassandra get on here and explaining and giving the information. That is the best. So I just really appreciate it. I know it's not always easy to do that. There's a burden that people take on within the community when they choose to get up on platforms like this and share and speak from their personal experience and their professional experience. So I really appreciate, Cassandra, all your time today to do that with me.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time, and honestly, like it got to me, like the things you said, just like I don't know.
Mm.
Really?
Yeah, no, just me being a great example of like being able to, you know, stand up for myself and all that.
Oh yeah, you don't take anything off of anybody. And I love that about you. And I just wish all my clients, I would wish that for all my clients that we would all have the confidence to be that way in our lives. And I hope that NMGVC and what we do at NMGVC can just be like a small part of helping build people up so they can just, be tougher and more protective and safer and, more confident in how they let others treat them, not just in how who they are expressing themselves and all this, but how they allow others to treat and interact with them. So
Yeah, I mean, when somebody misgenders you, don't be afraid to correct them. Don't be afraid to ask for an
exactly,
apology. Like
exactly,
you are owed that.
Yeah.
100%. Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you
Cass
for
has
all the
seen me
words of
stand
wisdom and
up for.
encouragement.
Cass,
And
I I have never seen Kat so animated as when I told her a driver misgendered me. She's like, "Oh my God, you want me to go out there and say something? I will." Yeah, like I thought
And
she
then we
was ready to
did. We
fight
went
him in the
out
parking
together.
lot.
We told that cat. Yeah.
that's showing up
She
for
was
somebody.
madder
That's
about it than
awesome.
I
Yeah.
was, and I'm like, "Let's go, girl!"
Yeah, I know. And there was another day where there was another provider next door to me in my old location that was misgendering one of my clients, like openly using he, him pronouns for one of my femboys clients. And I remember both clients that were standing there watching me, I got right up in this person's face and they were like, oh my gosh, I would never even think you're capable of that. Because they always see me so professional and put together. But for cisgender people, I just think it's so important. Like when you see that happen, hear that happen, you need to step right up and
Yeah.
no
The
hesitation.
worldview is not going to
This client,
be shaped otherwise.
Mhm.
exact,
People
and also
really,
because clients are
people,
not confident to do that for themselves. That
mhm.
it's hard. It's really hard. So do it for them. You hear that happening, step up.
And people really underestimate their power in a social situation just when they hear something that's so like, and that's when
Right.
you know things are systemic, right? When people say
Yes.
something harmful, bigoted, and they don't even realize it.
hmm
They don't even
Or they just let it
think about
go.
it. They just that's how
Yeah,
they're raised. They don't think about it. That's just to them, that's a normal thing to say. And like people underestimate their power to just be like, hey, that's messed up.
totally.
Yeah.
Or just you're not like I don't say that. Stop, right? Stop
Mhm.
talking. Remove yourself. You're not it's not okay for you to be in this space right now. I'm not going to
Yeah.
listen to you say those things. You will use the correct pronouns. I followed this particular provider all the way out into the parking lot and like basically chased her down to her car that day. And sometimes that's what it takes. You just can't be afraid because it's like they're sometimes people are not going to remove themselves from the situation
That's
unless
what
you
we
get
mean
kind of
by
forceful
fierce
with
And
them.
a lot
advocacy,
of
mama.
times,
Yeah.
and a lot of times people see you and they're just
Yes.
so egregiously disrespectful that like they'll
Yes.
look at someone like me and they'll never see anything other than a dude in a dress. You know what I mean?
Mm,
And
hmm.
it's just so important to never accept that because
Never
they
accept
only
it.
do it because they view you as weak and they think they can get away with it. And the moment you stand up and prove that they can't, most of the time they back down, they cower, they get really weird about it, and it's funny. Try it sometime. It's great. It's one of the most liberating things you'll ever experience.
And lots of times it has to do with them. Like that's what I find in the training and like teaching that Kyle and I have done together and in serving my clients. I find that usually if somebody is that aggressive and they find the need to be that bigoted and discriminatory towards somebody, it's because they have something going on personally within themselves that they have not thought about and
Yeah, there's a lot
confronted. There's
of
some
inner
sort of fear.
conflict that they're wrestling with, and it
Yes.
sounds the verbiage projection is repeated a lot, but I mean, it so often is. There's a lot of insecurity being put
Yeah.
out there, and
Yes.
maladaptively coping at the expense of someone else.
And that's part of
Yes.
it. Like there's really like
Exactly.
I've thought about it and there's really so many different aspects to like transphobia, right? And part of it is like one aspect is a transphobe will look at someone like me and suddenly I'm a reflection of their fears. Oh,
Right.
sweetie, you have secrets. Um, some of it is they look at me and they find me attractive. And now their awkward boner
Mm-hmm.
has made them full of doubts and insecurities,
Totally.
and they don't
Oh,
know
they
how
got
to react to
feelings.
that.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
woo. Am I gay? I mean,
Right.
not technically.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I mean, there's
That's a good
so
observation.
much that goes into it. And really and truly,
Hmm.
though, no matter what angle you take at it, like transphobia is largely just rooted in those insecurities and those
Yes.
projections. And once you
Yep.
know that, it's like I know like not everybody's into it, but one of my favorite quotes ever is from like Game of Thrones, right? Tyrion Lannister. Know what you are and wear it like armor and it can never be used to harm you.
It's a good
Once
Hmm.
line.
you
He's one
know
of the
where
best characters
people's
in the series. So yeah.
once you know where people's insecurities sit, it's really easy just to throw their own nonsense back at them. And like oftentimes that's what they need, if you're like hostile, they'll get hostile back. But if you can make them feel really ignorant for what they just said, they're going to stop and think about that for a minute. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And
Yeah.
it can be a very effective way of combating that. Um,
Yeah, you
like
can always choose how you reciprocate. Yeah, reciprocating doesn't mean you have to match their level of anger because then it's like rescuing a
one of
drowning
my
person and they don't know to calm down and they end up pulling you in the muck with them. It's harder to escape that maze of anger if you're not prepared to,
one of
uh, you
my
know,
favorite movies is
adapt to that change.
Alien, because people don't really realize the undertones of Alien, right? People don't realize it is a deeply feminist movie. Everything about it is feminist. The Nostromo has like udders. The ship name is Mother. You're led to believe in the beginning the lead is going to be this guy Dallas, but it's not. It's Ripley. But one of my favorite things in there, oh, my brain just stopped working again. Um,
We've been going for a
oh,
while. It's okay.
one of my favorite things is in the sequel. And I love her so much. Velasquez. She's working out, just being all beefcake mommy, you know what I mean? And she's doing the pull-ups, and that guy, is the guy is like, game over, man, game over. He just walks up and he's like, hey, Velasquez, have you ever been mistaken for a man? And she just drops down and she's like, no. Have you? And I mean, like, that's like my whole energy. Like, that's the way I fire
Totally.
back.
Yeah, and
You know what I
I mean,
mean?
you was talking about representation earlier. It's little moments like that that stand out.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah,
representation
I
matters when we're
agree.
seeing,
And I mean,
characters that don't necessarily
Velasquez
fit
is
the
a
norm but are
character
strong.
that, again, defies the gender norm. She's a cis female who identifies as a cis female, as far as we know, but she has very, masculine traits, so to say. She likes
Right.
to work out. She likes them big guns. I mean, you look at Alien. Alien has so many little Easter eggs. The character, um, um, what is her name? I can't remember. The other female on the crew, though, she is canonically transgender.
Ripley or
Um,
someone else?
Not Ripley, the other one, the other. Oh, I can't remember her name off the top of my head. She's got the short hair. She's got that really
Okay.
cute short hair look. um, I can't. It's on the tip of my tongue. I love that movie. I just can't think of it. But yeah, no,
I can
it's
see them, but
there's
yeah, I
so
can't think of the name anyway. But
there's so much in that movie. It's like the Matrix, right? Like people don't like realize it's a trans allegory, and
yeah,
so many people
until you
take it
do,
to
and then it's
mean
like,
like
oh,
whatever
yeah.
they want because people don't look at the undertones. But like, no, Alien is really a beautiful movie, not just for the horror aspects and the how well done it is, but the fact that it is really a very feminist and inclusive sort of movie. Even you look at like the interactions with the one character, the black guy, you know what I mean? Like you can tell that these dynamics, like there's all these dynamics happening, but like I don't know, it's just such a good movie.
it's
Sorry. That was
I love
derailed. I'm
Aliens
sorry.
too.
it's
No,
relevant
I
because
like
it's important to
Aliens too.
you, and it had characters and depictions and dialogue that you connected with, and I think that's what we look
Yeah.
forward to seeing to help us better recognize who we are along the way. So I think, yeah, I hear you. That's why it's important. Um, Kat, I've got the PayPal from your org that I'm about to drop in my chat. I would love to know
Well, thank
if
you all so
your
much.
Gender Voice Center ever does like a specific time when they fundraise.
We're just always kind of constantly fundraising.
Okay.
Honestly, the community's been really great. I think most of our fundraising to date has come from Facebook fundraisers and people, not only our Facebook fundraisers, but people doing little Facebook birthday
Okay.
fundraisers,
You've got like social media campaigns going and raising
Yeah, I
awareness or
think so.
no?
I really
We'll
should
help with
know
that a
more
little
and be
bit.
more involved, but I have somebody on my team who handles all that, and I
Okay.
believe they're on top of it and have everything going. But yes, I think the short answer is yes.
Okay.
So find us on TikTok, find us on
And
Instagram,
we're
find us on
fundraising year
Facebook.
round and never a bad
I
time to
Yes,
donate, y'all.
No, I also want
right.
to add, and maybe this is like, I don't know. I just also want to add part of the donation thing is like in the physical location there, there's a lot of, there's free water and there's free makeup for the trans femmes. And it's something I've actually been thinking about because I did take advantage of that and it does help with the whole confidence issue thing, you know what I mean? And I've been wanting to take some of that, like go to the store, buy some of the makeup I personally use and give back, you know what I mean? And like,
In the clinic specifically, there's
yeah,
freebies
yeah,
that our clients bring, and
yeah,
makeup and fem care is one
yeah.
of them. And we have a
Awesome.
lot
Yeah.
of clients who have taken advantage. But I would say for the fundraising too, Hogue, if I could just make a little caveat to that,
Yeah.
ask your cis friends to donate. We're not necessarily looking for donations from the community. We prefer if you're in the community, come see us if you're interested in voice, or recommend us to somebody that wants to work on voice training and transition. But in terms of donations, ask your cis friends to
Mhm.
donate, ask your
Sure.
companies to donate, pull from there. Don't We appreciate when somebody, we've had people send us $3. I mean, I really, from my bottom of
Mhm.
my heart, I appreciate that. But, save your $3 for you. Go
Yeah.
ask a cis person or
Mhm.
your corporate sponsors
Pull those
to
resources from those
donate.
already relatively secure in their resources versus asking
Yeah.
for
And it's a great
anything from those who
resource
really don't
for
have it to
cis
give.
people
Yeah.
who just,
Totally.
want to do something like anything. It's a great thing
I was
to
going to say,
do.
because that's what there's so many cis people and so many businesses that want to, they want to give to the community, right? And they don't, there's only so many organizations out there, sadly. And sometimes they're looking for somebody new, or they just don't even know we exist. And, you know, so tell somebody, as we know, a lot of times our clients from within the community are coming from limited means. And we, seriously, I'm always so touched when somebody gives us the last $2 that they have for the month. But I would prefer you just keep it and, go tell the cis people in your life and the corporate people in your life to donate instead. Do a good thing
Yeah.
for the year. Businesses always have money they need to get rid of at the end of the year, right? So they don't get taxed and all these things, and they want to look good in front of the community. And, I mean, that's just how it goes. So you can come do a good thing at NMGBC.
Yeah. And it's just good to know
Yeah,
that, whether it's tangible or
it is.
intangible, it's direct action directly impacting, persons in need, and that's what we like to hear.
And they're going to save a life. I mean, if you
Yeah.
donate to NMGBC, legitimately, you are going to save a life. And I'd like to see more cis people and more businesses taking an interest in saving LGBTQIA two spirit
Mm.
plus lives. I'd really like to
It's
see that.
it's so true. Like, I mean, the evolution of my voice was such a profound, just life-changing thing. Like, no, it really is very super impactful in the lives of trans
Is.
people to be able to sound the way that you feel and to be
Yeah.
able
Yes.
to finally be, you know what I mean? Like to sound like you is such an important thing.
Mhm. And what people within the community can do is instead of giving us your money, come see us or tell somebody that you know in the community about us, or just share the resources that we shared today, like the
Yeah.
link to the vocal congruence project, the water bubbles video. Share these resources out because there's not enough of them going around. And that is really like when I was thinking about NMGVC and forming it, my main purpose was really wanting to share knowledge around vocal training and vocal transition and vocal care for the community. There's too many of us holding on to our knowledge. And that's why I do all the little reels and TikToks and stuff. It's like, it's not a replacement for a session or a series of sessions, right? But we should be sharing more healthcare knowledge in general.
Hmm.
You hear that, users in chat? If you have a TikTok, so does the New Mexico Gender Voice Center.
I'm not the best social media poster, but I'm like finding my way with it. And it does, they're really short. I keep it to like 60, 90, seconds. I put the captions on in case you don't want to turn on the audio and listen to my annoying voice. And you
Self
can still
talk.
get the information. So,
Well, I'm
well,
dropping that
thank you
link
so
too while
much.
I'm at it.
Thank you
Yeah, it was,
so much. I have to go cook dinner for my son.
It is
He
supper
eats all day
time. I
now that
think by
he's
most time
on
zones
his
and
way
all
to
accounts,
third.
it is supper time. We've had a lot of food for thought today too.
mm,
Yes, that's
And
true. We
yeah,
have.
thank you
This is
both
a
very, very
great.
much.
yeah,
Thank
this
you,
was
Hope, so
wonderful.
much, and thank you, Cass. This is really great.
All right, I
So,
will share the
I
once I
wish
have it
everybody
uploaded. It
could
may take a little while, but I'll share the YouTube link with you a little bit later once we've
yeah,
got that good to
be
go.
a long one.
It'll be a long one, but
Thank
I think a good one. We've got substance here, baby. We've got some good substance here.
you.
Thank
We
you both
really
again. Have
do.
a great rest of your weekend and a delicious supper.
Awesome. Thank you for having
You all
us. It
as
was a great
well.
time.
All right,
Have a
bye,
great
y'all.
weekend. Bye.
Bye.